Betsy, we would be finished by now.
Well, you're right. And that's why the hurricane levee protection system was started, was because of Betsy. Now, this, I've got to say that, of course, you're a Democrat. And so, you know, perhaps I should not have asked you that of John McCain. But I want to move on a little bit from there. Let's look at this hurricane that is making landfall, that has caused this massive evacuation over southeast Louisiana and portions of coastal Mississippi. And people across the country may say, why should we help them if they're going to keep on getting hurricanes? And you and I know that severe weather can happen anywhere, but there is this perception that perhaps they're going to get hurricanes and maybe they shouldn't be helped. What, do you get that sense from any of the people that you work with?
I do get that sense, but it makes absolutely no sense to me.
I agree with that.
When Florida gets hit more by hurricanes than we do, and it always troubles me that no one seems to say, well, why do people rebuild in Destin? Why do people rebuild in Panama City or Miami? So the fact of the matter is that you can protect low-lying areas. We've seen that in countries around the world, like the Netherlands.
Right.
Sacramento Valley lies very low. There are other parts of this country that may be near or below sea level that can be protected. And so with the right engineering, the right partnerships between our federal and state government, and the right money spent, which we now have established our revenue stream to do it, it can be done. And let me say, I didn't mean to be critical of Senator McCain. He's not been a big fan of the Florida bill, but he has been supportive, and he has come down here to see our levees. And should he be elected president, we're going to be relying on him, you know, for leadership, as we will should Barack Obama be elected president. And we want both of them to understand that we have to do this with our federal partners to build levees and restore these wetlands. They don't just belong to us. They belong to the nation, and they protect more than just the people and the livelihoods of the 4.5 million people that live in our state.
Yes. And Mary, I didn't mean for it to sound critical of what you said. I heard the phones ringing afterwards, and I was thinking, oh, I'm going to have a response from somebody else saying that I should not have asked that of you.
We're going to be very fair to both of these candidates, and I know that they hopefully will both be here at the end of the week, and we're very happy to walk them on these levees and to show them that while we're making progress in the New Orleans area, there are places in Louisiana that we've been trying for 20 years to build levees. Lafitte is a small town. We've actually allocated the funding, the authorization for Lafitte, but can't get the money. We have $14 million sitting in a bank account for Grand Isle, but the Corps of Engineers wouldn't work fast enough to build their back levee. So we still have a great deal of work to do to get not just the more money, but the process in place to get this protection system built. And it will be worth every penny we spend, and the country will greatly benefit.
Senator Mary Landrieu, thank you so much. And just this one other comment. We were speaking with the mayor earlier, and he said, yeah, the Back Bay was filling up this morning.
I know, and the sad thing is there's literally money sitting in the bank account that the Corps of Engineers has literally just been turning in circles the last 2 years, and that's our problem. I mean, we've got to get a more streamlined approach, and I'm not being critical of the Corps. They've done a good job on some parts, but the system must be changed, and everybody in Louisiana will tell you that.
Senator Landrieu, it's Melanie again, and we've had this discussion several times, and we all know that you've been fighting for the coastal restoration for years now, before it was on such a federal attention span after Katrina. But let's talk for a minute also about the industries that are being impacted by Gustav and that continually are impacted by these hurricanes and how they will affect the rest of the country as well.
Well, one of the industries, and I'm happy to mention it, is Chet Morrison has built a company from 2 people. He now has 2,000 people working around the world with 1,500 of them in Houma, Louisiana. I was literally with him last week talking about this exact issue, meeting with the people from Morgan City and what we call Morganza to the Gulf. And the fact of the matter is, Houma is a center for offshore oil and gas drilling. So as the country looks out to see where can we get more resources, how can we lower the price, how can we break America's dependence on foreign oil, the place they look to are places like Houma and Morgan City. Yet these places do not have the levee protection that they need. So my message to the country is, if you want more oil and gas, if you want to be energy independent, then protect the people that are producing it for you. And with a little bit of investment, just a small percentage of the tax dollars that are generated, we could get this done. So you're actually correct, and we're going to continue to work on it. And that's our message when Barack Obama and John McCain come down here this week, and when President Bush visits in the next day or so. That's what we want to tell them. But listen, I've got to take another call. Thank you all so much, and we'll be in touch through the day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Senator Mary Landrieu, for speaking with us this morning. And you have been, of course, continuing to speak with us throughout this weekend, throughout these past 4 days. Actually, we want to talk now to Renee Poche from the Army Corps of Engineers. Good morning, Renee. Are you with us?
Hello.
Hi, it's Melanie Hebert over at WDSU. Where are you located right now, Renee?
I'm at the New Orleans District Headquarters on Leak Avenue.
Okay, can you tell me at this point, Mr. Poche, what levees we're concerned about? And I'm going to bring Margaret Orr into the conversation as well, of course, our meteorologist here at WDSU, and also my colleague, my co-anchor, Roop Raj, who is joining us from Baton Rouge this morning. And they will be asking you questions as well. But what levees are you particularly concerned about today still with Hurricane Katrina?
Well, right now we don't see
I'm sorry,
concern
with Hurricane Gustav, excuse me.
Yeah, flashback there.
I know. I know, not a good one either.
Yeah. Right now we don't see any issues with the levees. No storm surge flooding right now due to Hurricane Gustav. We do anticipate, localized flooding due to the heavy rainfall, and that'll be handled by the local drainage and pumping systems.
Well, at this point, we've had about 14 inches of rain over at Grand Isle. What other kind of rainfall reports are you getting?
I haven't seen any my way yet, no.
Okay.
You most probably know better than I do right now.
Well, we do have a 59-mile-per-hour wind gust at Belle Chase, and this is just in. It's now a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 110 miles per hour. And at this point, it's about 20 miles southwest of Port Fourchon. And we also have very heavy rain moving just over the Slidell Twin Span, the causeway into the city, and then southwestward, just to bring y'all up to date, into Laplace and Reserve and Gramercy. And our good friend Roop Raj now has rain over there in Baton Rouge. The winds are gusting to 35 miles per hour. Some of that heavier rain is beginning to move in. Just a real quick look at the wide picture in our Weather Plus radar network. Strong storms now over in Florida. Winds are gusting high. A tornado watch all the way from Pensacola to Baton Rouge, and the risk that you could have tornadoes with tornado warnings now in effect over towards Mobile Bay and also Pensacola. So we've got still a rough day ahead of us with Gustav officially still offshore 20 miles southwest of Port Fourchon. And lately it looks like it's moved a little bit more to the west, though officially moving northwest at 16 miles per hour. And you can see the Hurricane Center has done a fabulous job. It is right along that forecast track. And very close to the original forecast track, where it's kind of gone back and forth from the western portion of Terrebonne Parish to the eastern portion, and very gusty winds right now, right along the coast. So you're concerned, sir?
Again, the concern we see is well, not a concern, but just the localized flooding due to the heavy rainfall. We're not anticipating any issues with our levees right now.
That's wonderful news. I'm so glad to hear that. Even what about the Harvey Canal levee?
Harvey Canal should be doing okay. We haven't heard anything different out there. We did close the gate about 4:30 this morning. And I think you were on the air then, Margaret.
Yes, I was on at midnight.
Yeah. So we closed that gate. We let President Broussard know and President Binderwald over at the Flood Protection Authority West. We let them know, and the Coast Guard was notified as well. So I think the big thing folks need to understand here is everything that's going on is like the team of teams out there. From the federal government all the way down to the local governments, everybody has worked together as one big team, and I think we're seeing the fruits of all that collaboration.
I absolutely agree with you. What a change from Katrina. We all learned from it. Everybody has done well, including the citizens who evacuated, the people who needed help evacuating. I've never seen something performed so well, and I'm impressed with everybody. So that's good news. It really is great news.
Well, that includes you guys, too, for keeping everybody informed, you know?
Well, thank you. This is pat on the back.
And you guys, and no, really, though, all of the the parish, the state, and the federal leaders have continually called in to our station to give the latest information to their particular people who had concerns about particular areas. Now, Renee, even if you guys aren't concerned about waters topping those flood walls, that would take place today, what are you guys prepared for with that?
Well, you know, once it's safe to go out, which I'm guessing almost probably sometime tomorrow, we have assessment teams that are going to go out and start looking at the various parts of the system to see how it did during this. Colonel Lee, the district commander, is going to do a flyover and just kind of get the quick look at it. But we're going to have the experts out in the field on the ground looking at the various parts of the system to see how it did.
Because as you know, Renee, 3 years ago now, it seems almost eerily similar to 3 years ago when we thought that we made it in the clear with Katrina, and then it wasn't until some time later that we realized the levees had started to breach.
Yeah, I think one difference there is that, you know, the lessons learned from 3 years ago, you know, have all been incorporated over these last 3 years in this system that we're building. You know, we're using T-walls rather than I-walls, and you know, out on the Harvey Canal, just as an example, with the flood walls that are going up there, you know, the support sheet pilings are going in 12 stories, if you will, 120 feet. So it's a more robust system, and it's becoming more a system.
Thank you. Renee Poche with the Army Corps of Engineers. We're going to have to stop it there, and I know you have a busy day ahead of you, but thanks for joining us for that information. And Margaret, I'm going to bring you in again right now because we're going to look on the streets of Houma. We do have a live video. Look at this, live camera. This is what's happening in Houma right now, and Margaret can better accurately give us an idea of the winds over there right now, the rain.
You know what, over towards Houma, it's not as bad as it is elsewhere. Now, we did have some heavier rain move in, but real quickly, I want to show you, this is south of Houma. Let's go to our live Weather Plus radar. We've got basically the eye wall, it looks like, or one of the outer walls of Gustav's eye, moving right across the parishes along the coast. There you can see Timbalier Bay. That is really heavy rain. I wouldn't be surprised to get a water spout over that. It's heading on over towards Terrebonne Bay. You can see the circulation right around the center of this hurricane. So I just had to point that out real quickly. We can go back to that live streaming, though. That was way cool. But just keep in mind, there is the eye of Gustav right along the coast, now a Category 2 hurricane moving northwest at 16, right along that forecast track by the hurricane center. The wind's 110 miles per hour, and the Hurricane Center is still saying a 10 to 14-foot storm surge is possible, but there's that very heavy rain that is now circulating around the center, which is right along the coast. Now, how about that live streaming? That was really something, Melanie.
Oh, wasn't it? And we've had the streaming video online as well from our friends over in Marrero, but I know their power went out, so we didn't get that for much longer. Particularly, Margaret, can we talk about Plaquemines Parish again and St. Bernard Parish?
I would love to.
Is the situation for those residents going to be, how much better is it going to be for them than what they were expecting?
Well, you know, they are getting rough weather. We know that over towards Pointe La Hache, they had about 9 feet of water right along the coast. That's what the the storm surge was. That's what the tidal gauge indicated. They also had a couple of tornadoes last night. That was in Lower Plaquemines Parish. And during the morning hours, we had a tornado warning in effect for the Port Sulphur area. And we also had a tornado warning in effect for portions of St. Bernard, Plaquemines, and then into Orleans Parish for a rapidly moving storm. So this is not over. And if you look at the wide picture in our Weather Plus radar network, you can see there's a lot more rain to the east. And as the system spreads to the west-northwest, well, then it's going to bring that rain that's to the east to the west. So this is not over. We're going to get more rain, and at times it's going to be heavy. And as you look at these winds, 72 mile per hour right now is what it's gusting to at Belle Chase. And we can check some of the other buoys just north of the lake. The wind is really blowing. This is a 55 knot gust, but I would imagine it's even higher. In fact, I'll have to call the causeway. Maybe I can get that information. But there you can see this very heavy rain that's moving over the causeway right now. And with that heavy rain, you are going to have very high wind gusts, hurricane force winds developing, even though and these are our ASOS reports. These are automated reports that we get from our buoys. And, you know, they are definitely gusty and high, but they can actually be higher than that. And where I see them being the highest is with these rain bands that are moving on shore, and that's where you're at risk for the tornadoes. We've had several tornadoes over here at Hancock, Harrison County into St. Tammany, where the winds right now are gusting to 38 miles per hour. But again, the heaviest rain, I think, is probably with this eye wall that is right around Gustav. And you can see the circulation right here by Port Fourchon, officially about 20 miles southwest of Port Fourchon. That's where the center is right now.
And actually, I'm glad you brought up the tornadoes. That's what I'm wondering. We know on the east side of the walls where we see that expectation for tornadoes. From maybe what city to what city could you realistically say these people need to be on the lookout for the rest of the day for these tornado watches?
Well, for the rest of the day, you simply have to watch to see where the hurricane is, because as it moves west of the viewing area, well, then that area will then be under the tornado watch. But we've got a tornado watch that extends now west of Baton Rouge over towards Lafayette, and it extends all the way east of Pensacola. So this is the area where we are going to be at risk for tornadoes. And I would count on some to occur. I mean, we've already seen them happening, and it's in the rain bands in particular. So as you look at these onshore flowing rain bands, that's where you're going to be at risk, particularly for those tornadoes.
Do we know how many confirmed tornadoes we had this morning,
Actually,
Margaret?
I haven't had a chance to sit down and go through all of the reports, but I know three definitely. Two were in Lower Plaquemines Parish, and then one was reported over by Gulfport, and that was by someone who saw it on the ground. It was a trained storm reporter. And then we also had several other little tornadoes that looked like they spun up, but they disappeared quickly, and it's really whether anybody saw them. So at this point, I'll have to check the confirmations, and that's something that may not take place today by the National Weather Service because they have other things on their mind.
Absolutely, and people watching who can get a picture right now are looking at a picture right outside of our building, actually, on Howard Avenue in the Central Business District of New Orleans. And Margaret, I'm wondering at this point, so many people are familiar with Katrina, having experienced that, who are interested in the effects of this storm. How would you say at this point in time, Gustav is comparing to Katrina?
Katrina was a totally different animal. I mean, Katrina was just bad. And Katrina, at this point, our levees, well, let's see, it's 8:17. I think the levees broke at just after 9 o'clock when it made landfall. And so that was a very different animal. And it was interesting, though. This is looking like a fairly well organized hurricane. For Katrina, it was a different path, too. Katrina came from the southwest more, went across Buras over towards Slidell, kind of Pearlington, Pearl River, and then northward. The maximum sustained winds when it made landfall at Buras was 127 miles per hour. Katrina was a much larger hurricane offshore with the maximum wind radius extending out 44 miles. And so it generated an incredibly large storm surge. Over towards Hancock County, it was over 28 feet. Camille was a much smaller hurricane with a maximum wind radius of 7 miles, and it generated a storm surge of 25 feet. And it had winds that were at times at 200 miles per hour. And so you compare the two. Here was Katrina with 127 mile per hour winds and generated that 28-foot storm surge. And then Camille, much smaller, but had winds that were much higher and generated a 25-foot storm surge. So we look at the difference, and it's just remarkable. Of course, we don't have all of the data in at this time. We do know that we had 14 inches of rain over at Grand Isle. We've seen a 9-foot rise over here by Pointe-a-la-Hache, but the story is not written on this hurricane yet. It's still basically offshore or along the coast. It's generating a lot of rain, and we may get a lot of tornadoes out of it. We can look at our live Weather Plus radar network, and you can see where the tornado watch is in effect. And all of that rain that's moving on shore, obviously it's pushing water on shore. So at this point, we don't know how high the water is going to be, but I imagine that water is going to be piling up in Lake Pontchartrain. I can see that by looking at the wind motion.
Actually, Margaret, since you're bringing that up, excuse me, we just had a crew call in and report that they drove up canal to Lake Pontchartrain and that the levees seem to be doing pretty well. They seem to be holding up right now.
Well, and I would think that they would at this point because the winds are not as strong. We have had a wind gust of 117 miles per hour, but we're not seeing those high sustained winds that we had, for example, with Katrina. What we do have is a constant wind that is pumping water into the lake, and you can see that over time that moves into Lake Maurepas, and you can also see how some of it is heading over towards the North Shore. I don't have any reports of flooding on the North Shore, and you know, monumental flooding was reported over here during Katrina for Southeast St. Tammany Parish and along the Mississippi Gulf Coast with that just monumental storm surge. I hope that we never, ever, ever, ever see anything like that. The other day I said comparing Gustav and Katrina is like comparing apples and oranges. They are two totally different storms. The concern would be, are we going to get water moving in through right by Lafourche Parish and up into Lake Salvador and maybe up here towards the Harvey Canal? That's a concern that maybe we will have some flooding there. It hasn't materialized yet, but this hurricane is still right along the coast. It's still a very active being, and it is moving to the northwest at about 16 miles per hour, and it's forecast to continue in that direction and possibly kind of stalling out or moving very slowly over here in Texas. So I can't really compare the two until I get the full information, but at this point, this is not the hurricane that Katrina was. Katrina was a massive hurricane that caused a massive storm surge, and at this point, I'm not seeing a massive storm surge here, thank God. You know, so we can look at the buoy data, and I can show you what's happening right there. The winds are now, you know, gusting to about 66 miles per hour right at Grand Isle. Not getting any water readings there, though they have had 14 inches of rain. And then southwest of Empire, you can see winds gusting close to 70 miles per hour. So a very different animal. But as you look into right there at Belle Chase, look, they do have wind gusts right now of 72.
On that, we have Richie Angelico on the phone since you mentioned Belle Chase, and that's where he is, I believe. I know he's in Plaquemines Parish. Richie, are you still in Belle Chase?
We're just passing the ConocoPhillips plant. It's great news for the people down here. We just crossed that temporary levee that they built last night, and the south side is high and dry. So one of the feared high water from that back levee across citrus lands came through it all. Everything is dry as can be, and in terms of flooding.
Does that mean they're in the clear? Did you hear that, Margaret?
Now we don't know about the Port Sulphur area. We're going to head.
I don't want to give people false hope listening from Plaquemines Parish.
Right.
Tell me again, which area was it?
This is just by there's a 34-mile stretch between the Alliance Refinery and the Diamond Levee, and they were concerned about that area flooding and water coming down that Highway 23 towards Belchase. So they built a temporary levee. We came up on top of the temporary levee. We crossed it. There is no water in sight anywhere around here. So the protection levee wasn't needed, but if it had been needed, it was there. But thank goodness for the folks down here. We're just passing some people's trailers and houses. No water from the back bay, which was what they were fearing from that hurricane. And the wind is still kicking up pretty good down here. We're following President Billy Nungesser in his official vehicle now. He caught up with us, and we're going to try to head maybe as far as we think it's safe to go, maybe down to Port Sulphur. Check on that. I've gotten a lot of phone calls from friends of mine who live in the Port Sulphur area, and asking us if we can get down there and give them some report on what conditions are. And so we're going to try to make that, and then turn around and boogie back to the station as fast as we can.
Well, I can tell you this, Richie, no rain right now in Port Sulphur. It's just moved just north of there. But earlier today, we did have a couple of tornado warnings for Port Sulphur. So I am going to want to report on that as to whether any tornadoes touch down near Port Sulphur. So be looking between Pointe-a-la-Hache and Port Sulphur if you could.
Well, when we get to Port Sulphur, I'm sure they probably have a skeleton crew at the Port Sulphur Sheriff's Office when we get there. So we'll stop there and we'll find out. I'll also ask Billy Nungesser to call on his radio and see if we can find out if a tornado did touch down. If it did, if there was any damage. The only damage we're seeing right now along this highway, which is pretty normal for these things, the telephone poles are full of skew.
Oh yeah.
They're leaning at about 40-degree angle to the right side of the highway, which is the bay side. They're sort of pointing that away. It's amazing, though, on the other side of the highway, the telephone poles are perfect. They're upright.
Now, Richie, we do need to make this point. This hurricane is right along the coast, over there by Lafourche and Terrebonne parishes. Rain and strong storms extend all the way back to Pensacola, where there are tornado warnings in effect. So we cannot write off this storm. It is a happening thing, and some heavy rain in the metro area along with winds. And by the way, over in Belchase, where you just were, the winds are now gusting to 72 miles per hour.
I can tell you, the winds are 22 miles an hour here. It's blowing pretty heavy. And in fact, we stood up on top of the levee, some pictures, and actually it was hard to see.
Well, Richie, you're breaking up. I think the wind is wreaking havoc, and at this point, we hope you travel safely, and we're going to pass it on over to Melanie.
Yeah, Margaret, we're going to let you update your information and get some water for a second. Thanks, Richie Angelico in Plaquemines Parish, driving around Belchase with Plaquemines Parish President Billy Nungesser. We'll, of course, continue to get updates from them as they have been providing us with updates throughout the past few days. And just to give you guys a heads up, in just a minute, we're going to have an update on the power outages around the several southeastern part of Louisiana, and also in particular at some of the hospitals. But right now we want to get to Fletcher Mackle. He is in St. Bernard Parish, where he's been updating us with the latest. He's out there with Parish President Craig Tafaro. Fletch.
Good morning, Melanie. Yes, we were with Parish President Craig Tafaro at the governmental building, and now we are with Sheriff Jack Stevens. I guess we're some of the first people out here on the road in St. Bernard Parish. He's been patrolling for about an hour right now, surveying the entire parish from top to bottom. I'm going to put him on the phone in a second, and feel free to ask him all the questions that you want. Again, it seems to be, I don't want to speak too soon, but right now, we're prepared from all various standpoints and put their plan in place. And right now we're driving up and down the parish. We're in Chalmette right now on Judge Perez, and besides some tree land, it doesn't seem to be a tremendous amount of debris on the street. The wind is still pretty heavy as we drive in his truck, and I'm going to put Sheriff Jack Stevens on the phone with you right now, so you can go ahead and ask him more questions about the parish and how they did.
Right. Are you there, Sheriff Stevens?
Good morning.
Good morning. It's Melanie Hebert. How you doing this morning?
Pretty good, Melanie.
How's your staff? Who did you guys keep, and how's everybody doing, and how's the property out there?
Well, everyone's doing well. What we had learned from Katrina is that in that event, we kept everyone in the parish. And about a week into it, I mean, we were just burned out. So what we decided to do this time, rather than lose 150 cars, we brought about 110 units to Southeastern University and embedded about half of our enforcement personnel there. They're standing by to come in to bring the vehicles back in as soon as the weather permits, and we'll stand down the troops that we have on the street now and let them take over enforcement and give them about a 24-hour rest, and then everybody will be back up and running.
Now, did you guys encounter any looting or any problems similar to that on the streets during the mandatory evacuation time period?
No, we didn't. The last arrest we made were actually about 4 or 5 hours before the mandatory evacuation was ordered, and it was for theft over 300 and burglary, residence burglary, and criminal trespass. I mean, charges, I guess, that could have been classified as looting if they had occurred after the mandatory evacuation. But since then, we haven't made any arrests.
Oh, that's great news, Sheriff. How many people would you estimate stayed in St. Bernard Parish?
You know, a rough guess, I would say maybe 400 or 500. It was, you know, every time you go through one of these things and the streets are virtually abandoned, I mean, it gives you a kind of eerie feeling. It's almost like a science fiction episode, but people were orderly and compliant with the president's order to evacuate, and we appreciate their cooperation.
And where's your focus now, Sheriff?
Well, right now we started about an hour and a half ago sending scout units out to try to determine whether there were power lines down or whether any major intersections were blocked by trees down, so that as soon as possible the parish president can engage in clearing those things and restoring power. I mean, that'll expedite the return of people back to the jurisdiction in their homes.
Okay, Sheriff, and actually we have about 700 outages at least reported in St. Bernard Parish. That information about an hour ago. But again, is there anything you'd like to tell the residents of St. Bernard Parish, now of course scattered in other parishes and in other states as well?
Well, we certainly appreciate the cooperation of other levels of government here. Things really went textbook. You know, I mean, this is a force of nature. You can't control it. The only thing you can do is deal with it. And, you know, I told my staff a day and a half ago, we need some divine intervention here or we're going to have a major problem. And apparently who was at the worst of the storm. But right now we're traveling that levee system, and that's the reach from Barrett to Carnarvon. That it has the potential maybe to be topped. Hopefully that won't happen, but we'll know fairly soon.
All right, Sheriff Stevens, thank you so much for joining us. And we will, of course, continue to talk to you from St. Bernard Parish. And please give our best to Parish President Craig Tafaro as well.
Thank you.
All right, we want to get you updated this morning. It is 8:31 if you're just joining us here from our studios at WDSU. Our power out here, but we are operating on generators, so you can't see us, but you can see, more importantly, a picture of what's happening with Hurricane Gustav. Margaret Orr has stepped out, worked all night from midnight, but Ron Smiley is in for her. We'll get to Ron with an update in just 1 minute, but first we want to give you some important things to note. Hurricane Gustav, just so you know, now a Category 2 hurricane. The Harvey Canal, many people were concerned about the Harvey Canal. Those gates were closed at 4:30. It appears that canal, the levee there, is holding up quite nicely, actually. Several tornadoes, though, reported. We'll have Ron touch on that in just a minute, but we do know that one was reported in Gulfport and also a couple in Plaquemines Parish. Also, we can report flooding in Grand Isle. We talked to the Mayor Commerdale in Grand Isle earlier today, and we do know at least 3 feet of water was reported in Grand Isle. He said about 5 residents remained there for different reasons, just didn't want to leave. You know how Louisiana works, some of you. But about 5 residents in Grand Isle, and at least at that time, we know that there was about 3 feet of water. Street signs, several street signs down on Canal. We've had video of that throughout the night in downtown New Orleans. We brought you signs of people staying actually in downtown. We know at the Sheraton Hotel for one, but again, the power out all over town. And so we do want to give you an update on the power outages around several different parishes. In Orleans Parish, at least 91,659 power outages we can report here at this time. Jefferson Parish, nearly 65,000. To give you an exact number, 64,726 power outages, again, in Jefferson Parish. In Plaquemines Parish, we've been talking to Billy Nungesser over there in Plaquemines Parish, and our Richie Angelico has been taking us on a tour through Belle Chase. 10,000 outages there, a little over 10,000 outages. Also, in Lafourche Parish, 9,750 power outages there. This, again, all coming from Entergy. In Terrebonne Parish at this time, 13,790 power outages. And in St. Bernard Parish, we just got off the phone with the sheriffs there, and also Parish President Craig Tafaro, 6,524 outages there. And moving on to Livingston Parish, 351 outages. And East Baton Rouge, only 208 outages. That's where my co-anchor Rubraj is this morning. We're checking in with him continuously. And in Tangipahoa Parish this morning at this time, 315 power outages. Again, all coming from Entergy. And if you are just waking up this morning, good news to note at the 17th Street Canal and West End is doing very well. So a sign of relief, a sigh of relief this morning, we can say, as people are just joining us here at WDSU. I have a note here from Chris Fairburn. Robert Lambert with the Causeway Commission just called and says everything looks good. You know, this is what we're really hearing across the board this morning, and we'll continually get our update starting in just a minute with Ron Smiley. He's preparing his stuff for us. He can give us a better idea of what's going on right now with Gustav, but it seems reports across the board much better than we had expected for this time. Now, Robert Lambert on the 15th floor of a building overlooking the lake at this time, again, with the Causeway Commission, he says everything looks good from his vantage point, and that so far the levees look unchallenged. The lake doesn't look that high. That, again, according to Robert Lambert with the Causeway Commission. Let's go ahead and get a check-in with Ron Smiley. You won't be able to see him right now, but you will be able to hear him, and we'll continue to look at these images that he brings us. Ron.
Well, you know, Melanie, the thing that I want to talk about is going to be that storm surge that we're going to see. Now, let's zoom out, and there's been a little bit of discussion. We are still seeing an eye wall that's going to be around the storm system, but it's going to be very ragged at this time. It's not going to be a very good-looking eye or eye wall. And that's one of the reasons why we have seen this now as a Category 2 storm officially before it has made landfall, which will be very shortly over the next couple of hours where we'll see that. Notice where the winds are moving, though, and this is going to be the problem that we are going to see as we continue on throughout the overnight, or throughout the daytime, I should say. The winds that are going to be just off to the north of New Orleans are going to be moving from the east back to the west. That is going to be pushing water back into Lake Pontchartrain pretty much for the remainder of the day. We're going to see that continuously for the remainder of the day. Now, as this storm system, as this area right here, the central circulation, the center of the storm, continues to push back off, and it's going to just move kind of almost parallel to the seashore for a little bit, or the coastline. What we are going to see is we're going to start to see those winds that are going to be just behind us, pushing up all of this water almost due south to north. That's going to mean that the areas of Grand Isle, once again, back on the West Bank, that's when they are going to really be tested. Unfortunately, what this means is, while normally you would say, well, one of these sides is going to be tested, but not both, over the next couple of hours, really, we're going to see both of these shorelines really beginning to move in and really beginning to see those winds and those waves being pushed in. We do have another tornado warning. This is for central St. Tammany Parish in southeastern Louisiana. It hasn't come up on our live radar net yet. That's going to be until 8:45. So in about 7 minutes, that's going to continue. We can actually look into, when we see these strong storms, I might be seeing it right there. I just want to check. This includes the cities of Covington, Melanie, central Hancock also in southern Mississippi, includes Diamond Head. So central Tammany, St. Tammany Parish, zoom back out just a little bit so we can see this warning once again. And I'm going to back once again. I think this is the storm Margaret has stepped off, and she's right next to me, so I'm going to ask her. This is probably the storm that moved through Slidell just about 30 minutes ago.
Oh, no, they're racing. They're going so fast.
Right,
they're moving at like 70. What we have had is a series of storms that have been moving through.
Yep.
And so in them, you can expect that you're going to have these tornadoes. We've been talking about them. But at this point, let me just show you the slightly wider view. So we've got several that are moving through, and we are expecting one by Abita Springs by 8:40. That's in 2 minutes. Covington by 8:45. You need to get to a safe place. I'm just looking at these as I've brought. Actually, I saw something move just west of Covington. Right in here. Looks like that is right along I-12, not picking up a town, but that is west at this time of Covington. And then we can scoot to the west. What we've had are just a series of storms that have been developing, and each one, the potential that it could develop into a tornado. And it's with these rain bands that are moving onshore. It's been occurring all morning long. And so we're looking at this very carefully. But again, Abita Springs and also towards Covington, you are at risk for tornadoes right now. And anywhere where you see these yellow echoes, these bands that are moving through, there is that potential that you could have a tornado. Some of them have been very light. They're showing up in the green. They're different from your typical tornadoes that you might see.
And that's typical
Actually,
of these
this
storms.
one right here.
Very quick storms, very, much smaller than what you would normally expect from a severe weather type event where you get, those spring or fall time storms. This is going to be different.
Well, and right here, this is to the west of Folsom. That looks like a suspicious cell right there that is moving to the west. There's just lots going on. And with landfalling hurricanes, of course, you are going to have that risk for tornadoes occurring. So we're just going to be keeping you posted on that.
And Margaret and Ron, Highway 90 in Harrison County right now is closed. Transportation officials closed that highway right now because of the storm surge.
All right, and that is really going to be expected as we go throughout the day, and that's what we were just talking about. Everywhere is if you have coastal conditions and coastal concerns, this is what's going. If you are near the coast, we are going to see. No matter if you're on the North Shore. Around Lake Pontchartrain, you are going to see that threatened or that possibility for seeing that storm surge moving in. It's going to be persistent as we go throughout the day. I think that's a good word to begin to use for this storm surge. It's going to increase as we go throughout the day. And where the storm is, as we put things into motion again, you can just imagine, instead of all that rain that you're seeing, all these rain cells, just remember the wind is actually pushing all of these storms this way. And that's just leaning that pressure back on the water, not allowing anything to escape. And in fact, how much rainfall do we have right now, Melanie? We are seeing lots of rainfall. We can actually go in and take some readings. And, actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in and do a storm, just kind of go into the storm with our Doppler radar. And what we can do, and let me get there really quickly. Hard to talk and do this at the same time sometimes. We're going to go storm total. What this is going to
let you do that, Ron, and we'll check back in with you?
All right, yeah, that's fine.
Let's
do
that.
Great.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's do that because we actually have Jeff Hinkle on the phone right now from Plaquemines Parish, of course, the sheriff there. Sheriff, are you with us?
Yes.
Oh, I think.
Hello?
Yeah, good morning to you. It's Melanie Hebert.
Oh, Melanie, how are you doing?
Well, we're doing probably the same as you. Did you get any sleep? And who are you with? Are you touring the area right now? What's going on?
No, I'm at our headquarters in Bellchase, and confined to this area until the winds lay down. But right now in the Bellchase area, winds are not much different than they are in New Orleans. One report showed minor damage, some roof damage in the area. We just spoke to the chief who is on the East Bank, Mike LaFrance, and he said there's a few trees down. There's no water in sight anywhere. And reports from Southern Parish show that all the water is outside. Nothing has topped the level, everything below the line. So we're feeling pretty good about it at this point. We're hoping that the worst is passing us right now, and then we'll weather the storm much better than we thought we would.
You're cutting in and out, so we probably won't have you for a long time, Sheriff. But what about in terms of safety at the houses? Can you tell us about any attempted, did you guys catch anybody trying to loot the homes or break in, or anybody roaming on the streets? What's the update with that?
No, we have no one on the streets. We've had no robberies, no looting. Everything seems, we've got the entire parish locked down. We have no problems. That for Katrina, we don't expect any problems for this hurricane either.
And really, that was across the board. How many people do you have staffed with you, or have you had for the past couple of days during the mandatory evacuation?
Stay with us here?
You were fully staffed? Is that right? You were fully staffed? How many people do you have with you in the department?
I've got of the department people, I've got about 110 people right now. We've just kept the deputies and some administrative staff here. The rest of the staff we sent Baton Rouge.
Okay, we're going to let you get back, Sheriff. But real quick, do you have a message for your residents of Plaquemines Parish watching from other areas of the country right now?
Yeah, we just want to let them know to feel good, that things seem to be doing very well. We feel that they're going to be coming back home and being very happy at what they see at this point.
Oh, that's absolutely great to hear. Sheriff Jeff Hinkle, thanks for joining us from Plaquemines Parish this morning as you continue to tour that area and assess the situation there. We have Ron Smiley, I think, is ready to give us that report.
Yeah, I wanted to, I finally got to read the tornado report as well. Okay. And this is a little concerning to me because this was actually reported. This is not a Doppler indicated storm, where sometimes you get a storm and you say, well, we're not really sure. It looks like it with our Doppler radar, but we don't have any reports, and you never hear any reports of damage. That's not the case here. An amateur radio operator actually reported the storm. And ham operators, they have been trained in severe weather. They know what to look for tornadoes. So when you get one of these reports, it's going to be a little bit more concerning. Let's go over to our live first alert radar. I was actually just looking at the storm, and this is going to be moving into the Ponchatoula area, the storm that he was talking about. So you can see, I believe that is the Ponchatoula, or I forget what airport that is, but here is I-20. We can actually go in and just show you those streets, and I'll give you I-20 in just a second. Here is, or I should say I-20. I-12 is right here. So just off to the north of I-12 is where this storm is going to be at this time. Even though it's just some darker greens, it doesn't look like very much right now, but I can guarantee you that's the storm that he was talking about. There's Ponchatoula, there's Hammond. Here's the Hammond Airport. That's the word that I was looking for. It's going to be right here, and that's going to be that reporting site that's reporting 43-mile-per-hour winds. Things could get a little stronger for them as they are going to see that storm moving very close to them, and that's going to be the storm. You can already start to see it just a little bit right there. Right here. These storms, you have to remember, they're kind of a mirror of what we normally would be expecting because of what we are, what type of environment we're in. We're seeing these storms moving from the east to the west. We almost always see them moving from the west to the east. So because of that, we're seeing a difference when it comes to those storms. Here's what I was talking about earlier, Melanie, and that's going to be the storm totals. I was seeing a little light, especially back on the North Shore. They are looking at around 2 to 3 inches of rainfall right now. At least the radar is showing that that's really what has fallen in places like Bogalusa. The closer you get to Lake Pontchartrain, you start to get some larger totals. And then no surprise here, we're getting the higher totals with radar. I think that the National Weather Service, though, has really reset this over the last couple of hours. So we'll come back to that. It'll be something that we can remember right now, pretty much at zero. Let's see over the next hour or 2 hours how much rainfall the radar is going to report. And a lot of times when you have a storm like this, the National Weather Service says, all right, we got to reset this right now because we just can't keep up, with maybe an 8 or 9 inches of rainfall. And so they actually reset that. And I think that is what they have actually done. Here, once again, is reflectivity. So this is going to be our radar going in and locating the rainfall that we are seeing. You can begin to see, as we zoom in just to the southeast of Houma, that is where the center of the storm is going to be. The area that's going to be the strongest storms is right here. But look at this. If we were looking at an eye wall, and, that's been the discussion. How much of an eye wall is this? It's not going to be a very good eye wall if it is one. We have some strong storms right here, but look at down here. Just some light rainfall. I mean, good rainfall. You're going to see the heavy winds. But, Melanie, we're really not seeing the heavy rain. That's where the most violent of the storms should be. and we're not seeing that at this time. So certainly something that we'll be watching as it goes onshore. Just remember, when these storms do go onshore, we usually see more rainfall from them. This Gustav is no different from that. And even as the center comes onshore, we're starting to see that rain, that kind of brunt force as it starts to interact with land. You get more friction, and you start to get those stronger storms. And it looks like that's what's occurring right now. We'll certainly be watching that. We'll be keeping you up to date all morning long. We still have the possibility for tornadoes throughout the day. That's going to be a key concern. The storm surge right now is going to be the concern. And then later tonight, we are still going to be getting rainfall. Even with Gustav now moving away from a lot of areas in southeast Louisiana, we're still going to be getting that rainfall. So it could be a long day and could extend also into tomorrow. I wonder how this is going to affect, the electricity, them getting back electricity to a lot of areas when it's still heavily raining and a little bit of winds, but that rainfall could be a concern.
Well, on that note, Ron, we have Rod West on the phone right now from Entergy. So it's interesting you point out the way it affects the electricity, because we have seen the effects of Gustav as it moved along the coastline. Good morning, Rod. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Did you get any sleep last night?
No, not much at all. But again, this is the time when it's far more important for us to monitor what's going on so that we could properly respond to the challenges to our system as soon as this weather passes through.
Absolutely. Do you have, and I know the residents appreciate that, do you have an update for us with the power outages parish by parish?
Well, we look at it as a general system perspective in Louisiana. As of about 8 o'clock this morning, we had just over about 250,000 customers who were technically out of power in Louisiana due to the storm, and we expect that number to climb, because as the system has been moving into our service territory, we've seen the effect on our electric distribution system. Notwithstanding our relief that Gustav isn't as devastating as we had once feared, it is still very much a dangerous storm with high winds that are expected to affect electric service over time. But as soon as that system moves through our area, we have more than 8,000 crew members who are standing by in their various staging areas, ready to descend upon our area to begin the process of restoring power. So as long as the winds are howling and the rain's down, we're standing by. But the moment it's past us, we're going to do what we do and get this city back up and on its feet.
And Rod, just to put things into perspective for our listeners and viewers, you said you have more than 8,000 people on standby, or workers on standby. Let's think back 3 years ago for Katrina. Earlier today, or I guess it was last night, you told us that you had 10,000 on staff for Katrina. How much different was the power outage situation at that time?
Well, the issue was not so much what was different in terms of the number of customers out, but the significance of the damage. If you recall, in Katrina, we had over 80% of our city's land mass that was covered by covered by water in some part, which made, aside from the actual damage to our system, it made it impossible for us to actually access the area to begin the debris cleanup and the restoration. It is our hope that, notwithstanding the areas that we expect to see flooding, that we will have access to the city to begin first during the damage assessment in the immediate hours after the storm passes. Once we assess the damage, we know where we want to allocate our resources. And so from a comparison standpoint, once that wind gets up beyond 50, 60 miles an hour, it really doesn't matter. The damage is going to be what it is. Our issue is being able to put the boots and the wheels on the ground to begin the restoration process immediately thereafter.
So would it be fair to be able to give an estimate to our residents now when the earliest they can expect to have power? I mean, they're not even in their homes at this point, obviously.
No, they're not. They're not in their homes.
Perhaps when the latest would be a more accurate assessment or fair assessment, because, we remember for Katrina, but this nowhere near that situation.
I would not expect the damage to be commensurate with Katrina in terms of the amount of time that it
Absolutely.
would take. It would be totally premature for me to give an estimate, because we have not seen the worst of the storm for purposes of our electric system.
Mm-hmm.
It will get worse.
Mm-hmm.
before it gets better. And all we can tell you is as soon as we do the damage assessment, we will let you know in real time. You guys have been great with helping us get the word out, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that our customers, wherever they may be situated, will know exactly how we're progressing with getting the lights on.
And I have to tell you, Rod, thanks for joining us. You did mention about 250,000 customers in Louisiana right now are out of power, but you do expect that number to climb, and that's because we are not out of the storm yet. And actually, meteorologist Margaret Orr has been working very hard in the Weather Center to provide you guys with the latest updates. We don't want to give people a false sense of security. She has an update for us now.
Well, actually, with Mike Cosiera's help at the National Weather Service, I've been going through and looking at some locations for storm surge. And what I'm finding is that the water level is indeed rising. Let's see, I've written down, and now I've misplaced it. Right along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, we have a storm surge of about 7 feet over towards Gulfport. Right now, about 8 feet is being reported, possibly closer to Bay St. Louis. It may be higher at Bay St. Louis. And then I am looking into Lake Pontchartrain, right at the Wrigley's. We now have a rise over the Wrigley's of about 7.5 feet, and that should be going up more. That's a concern. And then we can look at Golden Meadow. Now, Golden Meadow, the rise not as high because that water is just beginning to go in there. So we can look and see what's happening, and that's a substantial storm right now, by the way. Very heavy rain over the lower portion of Terrebonne Parish as you've got Gustav moving onshore. Golden Meadow right about in here, and there we are getting a rise of 3.5 feet. And then we can go to the Inner Harbor Navigation Canal, the Industrial Canal. At this point, unfortunately, that's a 10.5 foot rise. 10.5 foot rise for the Industrial Canal. For the Mr. Go, it's about a 7 foot rise. You can see these winds are really blowing. What's happening, and this is what was forecast, is that this water level is going up because of the flow of the wind. You can see right here along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, you've got that onshore flow, and that pushes water onshore. So that's a concern. And right now, again, for the Mississippi Gulf Coast, it's 7 to 8 feet. That's probably going to be going up. So right now, 7 to 8 feet, and that's going up. Could be higher right now at Bay St. Louis. Again, the Wrigley's, in case you missed it, so far it's about 7.5 feet. As I recall, at the London Avenue Canal, there was about a 9.5 foot raise to the lake, and that's when the canal broke. That was at 9.5 feet. So at the Wrigley's, it is now 7.5 feet. So water is just really beginning to go up in the lake. And you can see why. You can see that counterclockwise flow right along into the lake. It's going to be going into Lake Maurepas as well. And, you know, originally 9 to 12 foot rise was certainly expected with this, possibly higher as well. At one point, the potential it could go 15 feet. We certainly hope that that does not happen. But we've got a situation where the water is indeed beginning to rise, and that's because of this counterclockwise flow. And you see the flow going into this area right between St. Bernard and Plaquemines Parish. That's not a good thing. And then you've got the water going into Lake Bourne and also the Wrigley's. So we're already seeing water rises beginning to take place along the coast and also into the lake and along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So 10.5 foot rise at the Inner Harbor Navigation Canal. Mr. Go is 7. Golden Meadow 3.5, the Wrigley's 7.5. Along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, we have a 7 to 8 foot storm surge. And you can see, man, are these winds really blowing now? I mean, the wind is blowing. You've got wind gusts 43 miles per hour over towards Hammond. You've got 44 miles per hour at Slidell, 55 miles per hour over there at Belle Chase, Baton Rouge. There the winds have picked up as well, 35 miles per hour, and you've got that heavy rain that is beginning to move in. Just looking into Metro New Orleans, though, we've had a few breaks in the rain. That's kind of nice. More rain moving our way. You can look southwest or southeast of the city. You can see it moving up through Wyclosky, heading towards Chalmette, and moving to the west. Then you can see just offshore, you've got some really strong storms moving northward, all wrapping around Gustav, which is moving to the northwest at 16. Frankly, we would like it to move fast. We want it to move out of here because once it moves out, well, then you have the rain diminishing and the storm surge diminishing. On the North Shore, we are watching for that potential, and along the Mississippi Gulf Coast for possible tornadoes. We've seen several echoes which indicated possible tornadoes. Here's one that's kind of close to Pearlington right now. We can't be absolutely sure that it's even reaching the ground, but there are some quick little spin-up tornadoes that are occurring. And this is because you have the airflow moving from the water to the land, and then it slows down at the surface but keeps moving fast at the upper levels, so you get a spin occurring, and that's why you're getting some little tornadoes that are firing up, just kind of spinning up right on the North Shore. So Pearlington has got some heavy rain over towards Slidell. That one looks suspicious for a while. You can see maybe just a little bit of a spin and then it's gone. So we do have rough weather all across the area, and unfortunately, we are seeing those water rises occurring with this Hurricane Gustav as it moves to the northwest at about 16 miles per hour. It is a Category 2 hurricane, and looks like it's right there following the path from the Hurricane Center, right there moving now into Terrebonne Parish. And there you can see that counterclockwise flow very easily, moving right around this system with the heaviest rain right now on the north side. It looks like it could approach Houma, certainly Dulac. You could be getting some of that heavier rain. And in this rain band, you can expect very high winds. Winds are going to be at hurricane force, possibly gusting higher. We can check out the buoy data, and their winds right now at Belle Chase, 71 miles per hour. Down here by Grand Isle, it's gusting to 54 knots. And then right here near Morgan City, you've got 41 knots. Slidell has a 25-knot wind, and then just into the Lakefront Airport, it's about 56 knots, and that would be on the order of about 65 miles per hour. So we have lots going on, but the big concern now is, besides the heavy rain with the potential for maybe 6 to 12 inches of rain, some areas, more isolated areas, could receive up to 20 inches. And of course, down towards Grand Isle, they have already received over 14 inches of rain. So we're getting plenty of rain in the area, and unfortunately, we are getting that water beginning to flow along the Mississippi Gulf Coast into the lake, into the Mr. Go, and right along the coast. So, Melanie, that is not very encouraging news.
No, it's not, Margaret. We're going to continue to get those updates from you. Please get your update right now while we go to Roop Raj out in Baton Rouge. He has some important information for us where the storm a little calmer there. Good morning, Roop.
Yeah, good morning to you. It has been one long period of time so that people are having a hard time keeping track of exactly what time it is. I got to tell you, that's the case. Joining me is Sandra Shaw. For you folks at home, by the way, this is, of course, WDSU, owned by Hearst Argyle, which essentially has 28 stations throughout the country. WBAL in Baltimore, one of them. Our corporation decided to send them down for such an important event, this storm. Sandra, not your first rodeo, so to speak. You've been covering hurricanes for a while. Mobile and Pensacola as well. Tell us what you compared this one to so far.
Well, depending on how fast it moves, it's a fast mover, and I think if about with the amount of rains, if it's how fast it moves through, that it could be potentially maybe, I don't know, maybe an Aaron or an Opal at a Category 3, not as intense. But New Orleans is a different topography than Mobile, Pensacola. I mean, a lot of times there you're just dealing with the beachfront storm surge. So this is an entirely different situation with the lakes and the storm surge and the below sea level elevation of New Orleans. Now here in Baton Rouge, what we're seeing now, Roop, is basically just some light spirals of the bands on the outside. And we're seeing things kind of pick up. But I guess the main concern here perhaps might be tornadoes, because there's the tornado watch that's in effect. And on some of the hurricanes that I've covered, especially in the inland areas, the worst devastation perhaps would be from the tornado activity, because it just takes everything out in its path and there's nothing left. During Katrina, I was actually on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and in Mobile, and we had significant damage there. And the area of landfall there, it was the storm surge in Mississippi, but there was also a lot of tornadic damage as well that took everything out.
You know, we are showing you some pictures too as you take a live look outside. Perhaps they're now rolling that video of some of the damage, not very considerable, compared to what we've seen already out in southeast Louisiana and in the southern part of Louisiana. But certainly this is just the beginning. An interesting point you made. These are what we call the feeder bands.
Yeah, the spiral bands that just kind of whip around the hurricane. You know, the actual eye, of course, is calm when it comes through, but it's those winds that are whipped around it that are so intense and the most intense of the hurricane. Northeast quadrant, typically the worst, and a lot of times that's where you see the embedded tornadoes. And right now, some snap trees, no real potential problem. Here, I think you also have to worry about the flash flooding because we're right in the Mississippi River. And there are the 6 to 10 inches of rain, potentially, that water's got to go somewhere. And Absolutely. So I think the potential for flash flooding is imminent here as well. And flying projectiles, once the winds do pick up, even inland, we're still dealing with the potential for hurricane force winds, 70 to 80 miles per hour. You see this basically the top of the wastebasket there flying around. I mean, that looks like innocent enough, but if you're out in it and something flies, it's got a lot of velocity. So you have to be aware of that if you're out and about. Hopefully no one will be, but certainly something to keep in mind as well.
But Senator, you bring up some interesting points. The different, I guess, the variance of how one storm can act. I mean, folks at home right now or perhaps in an evacuated hotel room watching this, these are live pictures coming to you from Baton Rouge. If we could come out back live, looking at this rainfall, just the beginning of the very storm that came through, of course, southeast Louisiana, and pummeling that area, Plaquemine, St. Bernard. Mm-hmm. We showed them video earlier of a downed tree. Folks, that's just one tree. As you can well imagine, when the rest of this storm comes through here, even though we're further inland, we could have some problems.
Yeah, I think you don't want to get a false sense of security. A lot of people say, oh, that's a coastal thing, that's a Paris, and that's a New Orleans thing, but certainly that's not the case. And you can't underestimate the power of the tornadoes. You can't underestimate hurricane force winds and tree branches falling, flash flooding. It's all a dangerous situation. And each hurricane, as you pointed out, does have its own indelible mark. And they are all different, and they are all somewhat fickle and eccentric. Now, it's interesting to note the forecast is accurate as far as the path. Margaret's been going over that. The path accurate. Fortunately, it's not as intense as we initially had anticipated or it had the potential to be, but still we are not out of the woods yet. This is going to be an ongoing event throughout today, and an immense amount of rainfall is expected as well, Roop. And I think it was interesting. I was actually over at the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, last night, and just being an outsider or having covered Katrina from Mobile, Pensacola, and watching what took place here in New Orleans and some of the things that have been learned, it is really encouraging and interesting from an outsider's perspective. The evacuation days early, the intense organization, very, very efficient. So it's so far so good.
Well, on a weather analogy, Sandra Shaw, it's kind of appropriate to say like every snowflake up north perhaps has its own indelible image. So too does every hurricane that comes through the Gulf Coast. That's what we're dealing with right now. And we're going to continue to be out here, this being just the beginning of this storm that is pummeling through the Gulf Coast. We're going to be live here, of course, throughout the day and bringing you the latest updates as soon as we get them out here. In the meantime, we're hoping for a relatively peaceful time here for the good people, of course, who evacuated from New Orleans. Hopefully they can have a peaceful stay away from home. We're on your side in Baton Rouge at Southern University. Roop Raj, WDSU News Channel 6. Now back to you.
Our partner in crime, Roop Raj, out there in Baton Rouge. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for that report. As we look over at a live picture of the Mississippi River, Hurricane Gustav, now a Category 2 hurricane, 9:06 this morning. And we'll be talking to NBC's Ann Curry in just one moment, but stay tuned for that. But first, we have New Orleans Councilwoman Stacey Head on the phone with us. Stacey, are you there?
I sure am.
Good morning. First of all, how much sleep did you get last night?
Actually, I got a decent amount of sleep on my Army cot.
On your Army cot. That's good to hear. Where are you right now?
I'm in City Hall.
And will you be, when will you be stepping out to assess the damage?
Well, certainly it'll be after the eye passes and all of the winds of 35 miles per hour. So right now would not be a good time to go out.
You got that right. And I'm going to bring meteorologist Margaret Orr into the picture in just a moment, and she can better help you decide when might be more of a safe time to leave, but certainly not now, Stacey. In terms of the response and the preparation for Hurricane Gustav, where do you think we stand? How would you rate us in the New Orleans area and also in the surrounding parishes? Because I know they all did really work together.
They did work together unbelievably well. The coordination was as good as it possibly could get, I think. The various levels of government, state, federal, local, worked well together, and then also, of course, the parishes working with each other to assure that the evacuations went methodically and went in sequential order so that the parishes that were most low-lying got out first, and then Orleans and Jefferson got out after that. So it was really good. I was in the Command Central, I suppose, today, which was in the 9th floor of City Hall early this morning, and got a briefing. And it was great to hear on this conference call all of the people from both the shelter areas around the southern region of the United States where many of our citizens are, all the way to the parish leaders in each parish that's been affected in the metropolitan area, communicate about how they were going to. Now we're looking at getting through the storm for the next few hours and then looking at reentry and trying to make that as orderly as possible.
Absolutely. What can you tell people in terms of the pumps?
Everything that we have, all the information that we have gotten thus far has been very, very good. I don't think the rainfall is overwhelming the pumps at this time, and so we look really good. I mean, I think there is some rogue reporter out saying something about a levee breach, but that is obviously not correct. And hopefully they've got her the proper information. The city was quiet last night, no problems. NOPD, National Guard didn't make any arrests. The only people out on the streets were either first responders or members of the media.
That's what I was wondering. Do you have an estimate as to how many people remained in New Orleans?
The number that has been sort of thrown around here is that we have about 10,000 people left in the city. I don't know if that's been confirmed or that's just a good guesstimate.
And where's Mayor Nagin right now?
He was just in the briefing, actually, so he's also in City Hall.
Okay, and are you guys still in contact with federal officials as well this morning?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The 9th floor of City Hall is sort of Command Central, where we have members of the federal government, we have FEMA people, we have state people, we have local people, and then, of course, we have the communication technology to be able to communicate with other parishes as well as the state, and then, of course, the shelters that are outside of Louisiana.
Well, let me ask you this then, Stacey. Since you guys are still communicating, and thankfully so, with the federal government, because the communication, a much better situation than it was for Katrina, as we all know. Do you think that the federal officials now and the people across the country now, considering we had such a big threat with Hurricane Gustav, and we're really not out of the waters yet, we're really not through this yet, do you think that the attention nationally and globally on coastal restoration is really playing out here now that we're only 3 years after Katrina and we did know what a threat Gustav posed?
I certainly hope so. I mean, Gustav was really only a real threat because we have no wetlands.
Exactly.
If we had wetlands, we would not have been so concerned about the storm surge, because with every mile of wetlands, the storm surge goes down dramatically. So I hope that this does bring an additional amount of interest into restoring our coastal wetlands, because if we did that, hurricanes like Gustav would not have been such a threat.
Absolutely. Now, what areas are you guys particularly concerned about right now?
Well, right now, everything is looking good. I mean, of course, there are power outages. We just got a number about an hour ago of roughly 15,000 in the metro area. So that obviously is a problem. We want to make sure that there aren't any lines down. Entergy is ready to come in once they have 5,000 people ready to come in once the metro area is secure, as far as less than 35-mile-per-hour winds. So at this point, it looks really, really good. Everything is holding. The pumps are holding. The city is in a very safe place right now from an emergency responder
Stacey, this is the most appropriate time to hand you over to meteorologist Margaret Orr, because she has some information for your parish.
Stacey, just to let you know, we've had some reporters go over to the Inner Harbor Navigational Canal, the Industrial Canal. It's now at 10.5 feet, and we have reports that it's not too far from the top, and that the water is going to be rising. I've looked up the gauge there, and indeed it is 10.5 feet. So this is a bit of concern as I expect more water to be flowing in.
No question about that. That is, it probably, I guess it has risen in the last hour and a half since we had the briefing, but, you know, I hope that the people that are in our emergency response team are looking at that to see what can be done.
Yes, I agree. What's happened is that Gustav is right along the coast, really following the track very nicely from the Hurricane Center over the lower portion of Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes. And what's happening is that we still have this counterclockwise flow. I'm showing it on the radar. And you can see how it's continuing to spin. And the concern is that the water is going to keep going into the lake and keep going into Lake Bourne and over towards the Industrial Canal. Just to let you know, the Mr. Go is at 7 feet. The Wrigley's is at 7.5 feet. And I do think as you look at this flow, that we could have more water moving in. So that's a bit of a concern.
It certainly is. And how fast is the hurricane traveling at this point? Because I know that that's one of our critical concerns.
Yes, it is. It's moving northwest at about 16 miles per hour. So it's making progress, but it's just moving into the lower portion of southeast Terrebonne Parish and also the lower portion of Lafourche. So that means that, and there's plenty of rain still to the east. And so what's happening is that we have these rain bands that are feeding in. You can look at the rain bands and you get a sense of the direction of the wind and how the water is being pushed. So I would think that we would still have some water going into these critical areas, and we're going to have to watch that carefully.
Well, thank you so much for keeping us so well informed.
Thank you, and thank you for all you do.
Absolutely. Stacey Head from the New Orleans City Council joining us this morning. 9:15 is the time now. Margaret, do we have any updates on the tornado watches?
We have, of course, a tornado watch in effect for the entire viewing area, all the way from Pensacola towards Lafayette now. And we do have several tornado warnings. They are constant warnings that are occurring. This one is just in, and it's really over towards Jackson and Harrison counties, and it is for Saucier. We're seeing a possible tornado to the east, but the parish, there is the risk for tornadoes. Earlier today, right along Interstate 49 here at Gulfport, we did have a report of a tornado touching down. A professional spotter did indeed see that. So we're looking at this area in here into Hancock and Harrison counties for a possible tornado. And what's happened is that they've been moving onshore to the northwest. And what happens is that when these storms move onshore, the surface of the storm moves a little bit slower as it encounters the land, and aloft it moves just as fast. So you create a spin in the atmosphere, and you get these little spin-up tornadoes occurring in the area. So that's what we're watching. We're watching, and the problem is you're really going to have a hard time seeing them out there. You just kind of have to pay attention to what's going on. And as I look at that, there's Saucier. West of Saucier, it's moving very, very, very quickly to the west. So in this area, you really need to pay attention. Another one may have actually gone just north of there. So there is lots of activity. This one looks very suspicious too, heading kind of towards Poplarville. We have got, look, there it is. got a lot going on. Look at this one. It is racing to the northeast Poplarville. If you are there, I would seek safe shelter. You want to get to the interior portion of your home. You want to get away from windows. This to me looks like a possible tornado that is moving rapidly to the west northwest. Just picking this one up, I'm going to do time lapse there. You can see indeed that they are under a tornado warning. Let me see the motion at 51 miles per hour. Maybe out too far to pick this out, but you can see how fast this is moving. So Poplarville, Varnado, these are areas that you are going to have to be careful of. We have had numerous warnings today as we have this potential for tornadoes. We said it yesterday all day that there would be a risk for tornadoes over all of southeast Louisiana and coastal Mississippi, and we are certainly beginning to see that, particularly along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. This is where we've had the most, and then earlier it was over towards Plaquemines Parish. Now, at this time, I would like to remind you the water level is rising along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, at times at 7 to 8 feet. We also have the water level going up in other locations. Over towards the Wrigley's, it's now, I believe, at 9.5 feet is what, no, 7.5 feet, excuse me. 7.5 feet. Let me correct that. For the Wrigley's, it's 7.5 feet. Over towards the Inner Harbor Navigation Canal, the Industrial Canal, it's like 10.5 feet. That is significant. It is close to the top, and a rise could continue. So there is a great deal of concern as we have this water being pushed on shore from that counterclockwise flow associated with Gustav, which is moving onshore and has maximum sustained winds of 110 miles per hour and is a Category 2 hurricane. So some big problems this morning as the water goes up, as the rain comes down, as the tornadoes develop. We've got problems, and we will be continuing to keep you posted on this. Melanie.
Margaret, I got an email from Betty who wants to know if you could particularly talk about Westwego, Gretna, Tarrytown, some of the areas of the West Bank that she says were not given much attention during Katrina.
Well, at this point, you can see that certainly we've got light rain. It's not very heavy rain that's occurring at this time. Here is Gretna just into Chalmette, though. That was heavy that came in. And when you get the heavier cells moving in, that's when the winds are going to be strongest. Over here by Marrero, you've got a 66 mile per hour wind. So Gretna, you've got some rain moving in. You've got windy conditions over towards Harahan, Avondale, Destrehan. There you can see that we do have light to moderate rain that's occurring. Ron Smalley is here. It's a big help. And he says that we've got another tornado warning. This one, again, is over by Saucier. I think it's the same one we showed you just a little while ago. Tornado warning for Harrison and for central Jackson counties in southern Mississippi. Southern Mississippi is going to continue to be a problem. So, you know, we were talking about the potential for flooding on the West Bank. We still do not know. We are going to be checking that information, but the truth is the water level is just beginning to go up. At Golden Meadow, the water was up 3.5 feet. Okay, so you see it's just starting. So you've got a 3.5 foot rise at Golden Meadow. Let me just scoot in to Golden Meadow, and you can see why. You can see that you've got this flow that's like so, and that's sending water to the north. Here's Golden Meadow right about in here. And there you can see Golden Meadow right here. So you've got a 3.5 foot rise at Golden Meadow. Well, over time, that water begins to work its way to the north, generally through the waterways is what's happening. It works its way into the Lafitte area, over Lake Salvador, and then it works its way into the waterway. Going into the Harvey Canal and possibly topping it. So the West Bank, it's a wait and see type thing at this time. You've got rain, you've got wind. Obviously, Belle Chase has 66-mile-per-hour winds, so you know that you have wind at this time. And you're going to have that rain repeatedly off and on. That's obvious when you see all of the activity. But the heaviest right now is from Plaquemines Parish through St. Bernard Parish into the Slidell area and onto the North Shore. That's where the heaviest rain is, and it's really been over here on the North Shore and along the Mississippi Gulf Coast where we've been concerned with tornadoes because we've had numerous tornado warnings, and I have seen these little spin-ups of tornadoes that last very, very briefly. Melanie, I think you had another question.
Well, actually, Margaret, I'm wondering about the storm surge.
Well, you're right. That's a big concern, and that's what we're watching. You've still got the eye of Gustav right along the coast, and until it gets well inshore, gets away from its water source, we're going to continue with the heavy rain. And this system has to move northward and get out of town so that we can get this water issue done with. But at this point, you've got the heaviest rain occurring right here near Houma. That's some really heavy activity. That's the outer eye wall associated with, of course, Gustav. Very heavy rain, strong winds right over Dulac, Montague, just right into Houma as well, extending over towards Galliano. I have really nice people who call me from Galliano, and one is very concerned about this stormy weather. I sure hope that she's okay. And there you can see on the North Shore that we're considering with this water moving on shore with 7 to 8 feet already right along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And Ron Smiley is coming in. Ron, do you want to give this report?
I can. This is just a damage report, a possible damage report of a tornado around Pearl River and Picayune, or Picayune and Pearl River Parish. A possible tornado at Highway 43. Just remember, these storms are moving so fast. That's going to be well away from there now. And inside road north of Picayune, a large tree has been uprooted at this time, so that's the concern there. I know you've been tracking these storms, so I'll let you get back to that. But if we get any more damage reports, I'll let you know as soon as we do.
Thank you so much, Ron. So that's Ron Smiley, who is hard at work this morning. And, you know, we have numerous meteorologists here with the Hearst-Argyle system. And they are working very hard, not only here, but also in Orlando. Dan Milham there, Damon Singleton there. So we've got the weather covered.
And we do want to, actually, I believe we have, do we have Mayor Nagin on the phone right now? I'm told we have the mayor on the phone, and I'm assuming right now that that's Mayor Ray Nagin.
Yes. Hello, Melanie.
Oh, hi, Mayor Nagin. Well, first of all, we want to bring meteorologist Margaret Orr into the picture with this as well, because we are just on the phone with one of your councilwomen, too. And you guys, you believe, are out of disaster, a disaster situation. Is that true? How do you feel right now?
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, the storm is still south of us, and we're still on alert, and we're still monitoring. We've got sustained winds, Margaret, I guess, of 35 to 45 miles an hour, with some gusts headed our way, and we've got power outages. So
yeah.
I wouldn't.
We've got problems right here in Kansas City, I guess you would say, except right here in New Orleans. I do want to point out we've got a suspicious cell right over by Dulac. That could be a tornado. That's rotating right around the eye wall of Hurricane Gustav. Mayor, you're right. We do have some heavy rain in the area, and the concern is that this rain continues to move into the lake and possibly into the Mr. Go. Now, we had reporters over there, and over at the Inner Harbor Navigational Canal, the Industrial Canal, the water, I checked the gauge there, is at 10.5 feet. How do you feel about that?
You know, I'm not comfortable as far as any of this. So if anybody's saying that, you know, they're a little premature, because we're going to have we will be dealing with this storm for the next at least 24 hours, I would think, huh, Margaret?
Well, we will, because look at well, you may not be able to see the big picture, but I'm going to put it on. It's in our Weather Plus radar network.
I got you on.
Okay, if our director could push up Weather Plus radar network or the old TrueView, and this is going to show that the rain extends all the way from Florida, where they've had tornado warnings as well, the western portion of Florida over southern Alabama, now extending into southern Mississippi, and I mean just up there by Jackson, and then westward, and it's extending over towards Lafayette. So it's getting pretty big. And what's happening, it's pumping this moisture across the area, and while I'm seeing some movement, I'm not seeing movement fast enough. So that means, as was forecast, the potential some areas are going to get 20 inches of rain. But until this top stops spinning in our area, we're going to have water pumped northward along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We are going to have this water pumped into our lake. Now, Mr. Mayor, this is my concern. At the Wrigley's, the water level this morning was at 7.5 feet. Yeah. Do you remember what it was for the London Avenue Canal when it...
I think it was, maybe, no, I don't even want to speculate. I'm not sure. But, to build upon your point, the IHNC is, the water levels are almost at maximum capacity. We have another challenge that I don't think anybody else is aware of. We have three...
Oh, Mr. Mayor, here it is. Can you see it?
I see it as we speak.
That's the industrial canal.
All right, so with more water coming in, we still have storm surge that's coming in. We could have overtopping, and most likely we'll have overtopping.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, this is not good.
And here's another challenge, and I hate to kind of concern people, but in that canal, there are two ships that have broken free, two small ships and one barge that is moving around in those canals. And one of them is starting to bang up against the canal walls.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask you what those ships were doing there?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. The Coast Guard is on the scene and working this right now. We're getting some preliminary indications that one of the ships was in a repair dock and, it broke loose, but there's no reason why 3 vessels should have been in those canals.
Oh, my goodness, Mr. Mayor, this is not good. As we look at that water, now we're driving through the neighborhood, but recall that water. Should that levee be topped,
totally different. The topping issue, we always thought that could happen. There's one more structure that needs to be built by Lake Borgne, and that's a gate that will help us with controlling the amount of water that goes into that canal. That gate will not be built until 2011, is what the Corps of Engineers is telling us. So there's still plenty of work that the Corps has to do.
And how do we move that project up? Because that would be a major factor in saving that neighborhood.
Well, we're getting so much attention from every level of government. Last night, Speaker Nancy Pelosi called me she was in Japan at a G8 meeting, and we're going to make sure that after this event is over that we get our priority list in order, and that will be definitely at the top.
So what are you going to do now, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I'm continuing to monitor all aspects of the storm. I'm really concerned about this industrial canal issue. We're starting to get power outages throughout the city. The Sewage and Water Board has lost primary power, and they're on their backup systems right now. And then I'm still concerned about the West Bank because I haven't gotten an update from the Harvey Canal, which is the weakest area of the West Bank at this point.
You know what? The water has not reached that area yet. At Golden Meadow, the water was at 3.5 feet, but rising. And so what's going to happen, that water over time is going to be working its way to the north. So it just kind of goes up the waterways, and it's not there yet. So, it's something we're going to have to watch carefully. But if you've got 10.5 feet at the industrial canal, of course, you had this constant pushing of the water as we look at our live Weather Plus radar into the lake and over by the industrial canal. So that's what the problem has been. It has just been constant out of the east, which is basically what the National Weather Service said it would be. Mike Coziera really did a good job in forecasting the possible storm surge and the slosh models. But look, here it is. There's the eye. It's just moving on shore. Look at it. I mean, it's pretty incredible as you look. And every now and then, I hope everybody is okay down here over by Dulac. I do see a spin besides the usual spin that you would see at the rotation. So I hope we don't have any tornadoes over there, but we are constantly getting tornado warnings right along the Mississippi Gulf Coast as we have these little spin-up tornadoes moving through. Thankfully for the city, we haven't seen so much of that, but for a while, early this morning, we did have one possible tornado that had kind of moved into the metro area, but I haven't heard any reports of any damage. So I guess the message I want to give to you, Mr. Mayor, is that the water is still rising.
Yes.
And that is it. Look, we're looking at this footage again. Hopefully we'll get to see the industrial canal. I wish we could just kind of leave it there and let us just take it in because it is kind of overwhelming. You know, you just want to make sure, is that really what I saw?
Well, Margaret, you know that as this storm continues to move past us and toward us, we're going to get more water challenges. And if the rain events take off and we get 20 inches of rain, we're going to have our hands full. In addition to that, we're fighting a major fire. I think they said that they have it under control at Broad and Esplanade, and those issues are going to challenge us also because we can't really move firefighters around like we need to. So don't anyone suggest that we're out of the woods. Remember right after Katrina when they said we've dodged it?
Yeah.
Don't let anybody do that.
I know.
We have another 24 hours before we will know whether we're in good shape or not.
So you've got a major fire at Broad and Esplanade. Is it under control yet? What is the situation?
The fire department is now reporting they have officers on the site. They have firefighters on site. We have EMS units just in case anybody, because this is really dangerous work. The winds are very high, and we want to make sure that our firefighters are safe. So we're fighting it right now, and we have it contained where it's not spreading, but we're going to continue to work it.
And what kind of structure is it? Is it a that area? I'm trying to think of the homes there. All right. Well, we certainly wish them the best. Melanie Hebert is here. And, you know, we started talking about weather, and I've got a big mouth, and I kept on talking. But I know Melanie has a few questions to ask you. You know, it's hard to get me to stop.
But Margaret, really, I mean, that's the most helpful to have our meteorologist go back and forth with these mayors. I mean, particularly, you know, we had Mayor Commerdale, for instance, from Grand Isle call in this morning, and Margaret's able to tell him because, you know, you couldn't be in Grand Isle this morning. I think he had 5 residents still there. So how many, on that note though, how many residents would you estimate, look at this, Mayor, are you looking at these pictures?
Yes, I am. I'm looking at it. The water's getting very high.
And do you see the waves on
There's
top of it
wave
too?
overtopping, which we've been getting those reports.
You have had you've had reports of waves overtopping?
We have had some wave overtopping.
Oh no.
What do you say to the residents of Orleans watching this, especially, Mayor, as you know, the ones who have worked so hard over these past 3 years to come back?
I think wave overtopping is not a major concern for me by itself. But when you have wave overtopping and you have a barge or something that's moving around in there and you have 20 inches of rain, that's when I get concerned. So we still have some work to do.
So we have 2 ships that broke free in the Industrial Canal and a barge, is that right?
That's correct.
And this was the first we were hearing of the fire, Mayor Nagin, on Broad and Esplanade. Now,
yes,
what's the current situation with that? Is that out, and are you fully staffed with the fire department right now?
We are fully staffed, and there's a crew on site, and the report I've just got
Melanie, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor. Travers on right now? We cannot get, what I'd like you to do, Rich, is ask Travers, is it waves that are simply going over, or is this actual overtopping, and is it going into the Ninth Ward? Where is it going?
You got waves over top and
Our producer is talking with Travers Mackel, and we are trying to get this information about a possible overtopping at the Industrial Canal. I checked the gauge about an hour ago. It was at 10.5 feet. We had reporters there who said that it was very close to the top. We shot this footage, which you're going to see in just a moment, and the water was right there at the top, very concerned about these neighborhoods. Okay, what is the deal, Rich?
If you're just joining us, we're on the phone with Mayor Nagan.
It's not the Ninth Ward. Where is it? It's coming over in waves, not on the Ninth Ward. So that's the upper Ninth Ward. Is that not correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, that's
correct.
correct.
So waves are definitely coming over. How much water is, in fact, getting over the levee? Rich, can you ask Travers Mackel that? What I'm doing is I'm speaking to our producer, who is speaking to our reporter. Is it possible? I guess it's not possible to get the reporter, Travers Mackel, on there when we have the mayor, and we don't want to lose the mayor because we want to give him this vital information. So we're waiting. Oh, Travers is gone now?
Oh, yeah, he's not going to be able to stay over there.
No, here's the mayor. Here's the mayor. The mayor is here. Rich, what exact information do you have on the amount of water that is topping the levee, or at least going over in waves? What is the amount of water? Okay, this is what we know, Mr. Mayor, and it's kind of, as you said, it is waves of water.
Yes.
So it's not, as you would say, a rush of water that is going over the Industrial Canal. It is waves of water. And what we're doing now, Travers Mackel is setting up. They are going to have a camera set up. They're going to do a live shot, and you will be able to actually see what's happening. Now, what I would say is that Travers has to be real careful.
Yes.
Because it is possible that that levee could give. You could have some undermining, some scouring that's taking place when you have lots of water like that. That's a big concern. When there's lots of water pushing up against it, it can undermine that levee. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you want to stay on the line. I'm not too sure.
No, I need to go in and check on these barges and ships that are loose.
Okay, well, here's the shot.
Oh, that's the shot right there?
Well, this was what was taped earlier, but it gives you an idea. Yeah. Okay. Well, Mr. Mayor, we'll try to get back to you.
And I'll get back to you guys as soon as I get more information. But you have everything I know at the moment, and we still have some time, and we're not out of the woods yet.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Good luck and God bless.
Absolutely.
God bless all of us.
Mayor Ray Nagan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we will, of course, check back in with you. Hopefully we'll get an update on that situation with Travers Mackel at the Industrial Canal. But again, as Mayor Ray Nagan just told us, there are 2 ships broken free in the Industrial Canal and 1 barge. So that is of particular concern to him, in addition to this water possibly topping the levee over there on the Industrial Canal. We do have Michelle Claudet from Terrebonne Parish. She is, of course, the Terrebonne Parish president. Ms. Claudet, good morning.
Tornadoes.
Michelle?
It's tornadoes. I need to go on.
Mr. Claudet, okay, Margaret, we're going to go back to you on the tornadoes right now.
We have possible tornadoes. We've got tornado warnings in effect right now for rural Hancock, Pearl River, Harrison counties. Possible tornadoes at this time. I think I just saw it. It is moving near Pearl River County, Harrison County. Looks like this is racing to the northwest. So we do have tornado warnings in effect for rural Hancock, Pearl River County, Harrison counties for possible tornadoes. These are the systems that we've been watching for some time. Every now and then we're just seeing these spins in the atmosphere, and it is simply due to this hurricane moving on shore. This is typical of hurricanes, but we frankly have a lot going on. So again, rural Hancock County, rural Pearl River County, rural Harrison County, tornadoes are a possibility, and it's all in this area. You can see possible spins occurring at this time. They are moving to the northwest very quickly. You will not be able to see them. Hopefully you can hear them. You need to get to the interior portion of your home. They are heading over towards Carrier and McNeil, crossing Interstate 59. Very rough weather at this time. Melanie, I'm sorry I interrupted.
Margaret, we needed to get that information out. Don't even apologize. And you know, the viewers from all over the country have been emailing and thanking us for that latest information, Margaret Orr. But we did want to remind everyone, just got off the phone with Mayor Ray Nagin. Again, what we're concerned about now, particularly Margaret and in Orleans Parish, and Travers Mackle is out at the scene. We're hoping to get a report from him shortly. But it seems that the waves at the Industrial Canal are topping the levee there. At least the waves from what we know. Now, of course, we're concerned about a possible breach in that area. We know the levees aren't up to what they should be at this point, but Mayor Nagin has also told us, and as we look at these pictures coming in just a few moments ago, here again, the Industrial Canal, this within the last hour, our crews came back and brought this. Again, Travers Mackle is at the scene. We hope to have a report from him shortly on those waves topping the levee. But Mayor Nagin also expressing particular concern of some ships that, or some vessels that were apparently in the Industrial Canal that have broken free, 2 ships and 1 barge specifically, and also a fire that we just received first reports of with Mayor Nagin on the phone at Broad and Esplanade. We do not know, we do know that the fire department in Orleans Parish is fully staffed. From what Mayor Nagin said, we don't quite know how that fire started. Again, on Broad and Esplanade, we don't know if it was arson. We don't know if it was an accident. We frankly just don't know. But we do know that the fire department, Mayor Nagin says, is fully staffed and that there is a crew headed to, if not at, the scene of that fire on Broad and Esplanade. But again, we want to get you updated. Margaret, tell us a little bit about the waves over there on the Industrial Canal and the potential for what's happening. Of course, we all know the levees aren't up to what they should be right now with the levee plan in order to maintain some of that water pressure, obviously. But well, we do have Travers on the phone, Margaret. So we're going to bring you into the conversation with him. Travers, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What can you see out there? Is it just the waves coming over?
Yeah, it's not a real encouraging sight, I have to tell you. It's on the New Orleans side of the Industrial Canal, not the St. Bernard lower Ninth Ward side, but the side that didn't break, the New Orleans upper Ninth Ward side, heading towards Gentilly. The waves are crackling over, but they're coming over pretty fast and furious. Not to cause any major flooding. They have nothing but rail cars right here for probably the first 100 yards after the wall, but the waves are coming over at a pretty good pace now.
And I'm looking at that levee. That's an earthen levee with, of course, the cement sticking up. Had that been replaced, is that a T-wall or an I-wall? Do you know?
I don't believe this one has been replaced. I believe the one that was replaced was the one on the other side, the lower Ninth Ward, St. Bernard Parish side, because that's the one that broke. But I got to tell you, I mean, it seems like, and this is just me talking as a layman, seems like the Industrial Canal is at a dangerously high level. It is very, very high. So
it's 10.5 feet as of early this morning, or an hour and a half ago. It was at 10.5 feet. It will continue to rise. As you can see, that water is still flowing in that direction. Plus, you've got the wind action. And then can you see there's supposed to be a barge that's loose in there, maybe a couple of boats?
I can tell you right now, if there's a barge that's loose, we don't see it. It's not dwindling up the river, if you will.
Okay.
We don't see any barges loose. So if it's loose, it's got to be close to one of the sides, and it's got to be closer to the industrial part of this canal. It's not in the part between the Florida Avenue Bridge and the Judge Seaver Bridge.
Is there any?
I saw Parish President Craig Tafaro. It seems like a lot of people are keeping a watchful eye on it. I don't know what you do in this situation. I don't know how you bring a pump in the middle of a storm and try to pump some of this water off. I don't know what
There's
the answer
nowhere to
is.
pump it.
It seems like, and Margaret could probably talk about this more, it seems like the wind is blowing the water from the St. Bernard Parish side to the Orleans Parish side.
That's
and blowing
exactly
the water
what
very
is happening.
hard, too. So.
That is, yeah. That's exactly what's happening. You've got a very strong southeast wind. I mean, it's 50, 60, 70 miles per hour at times. That's pushing the water. That's basically what the storm surge is. It is wind-driven water, and that water is being driven through the industrial canal. Now, also on top of that, you've got the wind-whipped waves, and that was a concern for the Harvey Canal, that you would have some of these wind-whipped waves. Well, we're seeing it. That's a fairly wide expanse, and so those waves can indeed get whipped up. And that's a concern, particularly if there is a boat that's loose or a barge that's loose. And as you said, you didn't see them, but you certainly don't want that to happen. Here, we've started this again. Everybody, look, there is the levee wall. And what is it, 2 feet from the top? But it almost looks like farther down that there was something that was missing in that cement levee. Did you see that?
I don't think anything's missing. It has not broken. I can almost guarantee you that.
That's
so
good.
At least the part that we're looking at has not broken. I can guarantee you that. It's being slightly overtopped right now with these waves hitting it and going over the top. But, I mean, just so everybody knows what it looks like, you're going to see our live pictures in a second here. As soon as we get our shot up, it's very windy, and we're on top of the Judge Seaver Bridge. But it's not like 50-foot storm waves are crashing over this. It's basically the waves are probably the same height as the levee wall, and when they hit the levee wall, they're going over. So
exactly. So the water level is still below the actual height.
It's barely below the wall, Margaret, but when the waves hit with this wind, that they're going over.
Well, Margaret, knowing what you know about the forecast and where Gustav is now, what does this mean in terms of the potential for that neighborhood on the New Orleans side of the industrial canal?
Yeah, the upper. Again.
Hey, Margaret and Melanie, I'm going to run real quick. I'm going to try to help get this shot so we can bring some live video to you guys. All right, we'll be back in a second.
Please do. Thanks, Travers, and we'll get a more detailed update from Travers. Go ahead, Margaret.
So anyway, what you're looking at is water being pushed in a counterclockwise motion, and not as much is going towards the industrial canal. It may be moving a little bit more to the north, so that may be a help. Where it may be a problem now is truly for the Mississippi Gulf Coast, as they're going to be getting more water moving on shore and maybe moving into the Slidell area. In fact, we should give them a call, Ben Morris a call, and see what the situation is for these lower areas where they often get some water. So that would be an assignment for someone to check with Ben Morris and see exactly what's happening. Now, are these live shots?
These are new pictures in. These are actually live. We're looking at pictures out of Houma. A lot of people have been concerned about Houma. So as we continue to monitor the waves crashing on the levee at the industrial canal, Margaret, what is happening at that area in Houma?
Well, I'd like to know exactly where we are in Houma. I'm zooming in on
Do we
Houma
know?
right
Do we
now.
know? Where's this camera in Houma?
Is this just...
Ben?
No, apparently we don't. But, I mean, Houma is getting plenty of rain at this time. This is Highway 57 right here. Up in this location, let me just check. You can see that's Bayou Black Road. So we have lots of rain that is falling over Terrebonne Parish and over Houma, with some of that heaviest right there near Highway 57 and Bayou Black Road. I'll come out a little bit more. Montague, you're not looking too bad right now, but the truth is, you've got the main activity right now. just into Terrebonne Parish. So, Homa, that includes you. Your wind is going to start howling. You know what we can do is we can check and see if you've got a buoy over there. That's a help, and it's just offshore. So that only gives us so much information. But offshore, you've got hurricane force winds, wave heights of about 7.5 feet. So I imagine you are getting hurricane force winds all around this eye. Officially, it's a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 110 miles per hour. And as we look across the wind gust, there, look, Baton Rouge now 36 miles per hour, 45 miles per hour at Slidell. Over in Gulfport, it's a 61 mile per hour wind, at Belle Chase at 66. So Homa, yes. Terrebonne Parish, over towards Lafourche. You are getting some major weather right now. And if you're concerned, look at how the water has got to be rising right here at Port Fourchon. I'd really like to talk with the people over in Lafourche Parish as well.
Margaret, we have Mayor Ronnie Harris on the phone right now from Gretna. Obviously, you know, we are going to let you try to get the latest on what's happening now. We want to monitor this situation again at the Industrial Canal. Travers Mackle's bringing us a report on that very soon. In the meantime, Mayor Harris, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How is everything over in Gretna? I know we've been talking to some of your policemen throughout the night, text messaging back and forth. How are things looking for you guys?
Well, an assessment team went out this morning, and, you know, we've gotten hit by a hurricane, and the power is out. Trees are down, along with power lines. The street lights at Lafayette Street and West Bank Expressway, the traffic lights are lying in the road, so they've been blown down. We have no flooding and nothing major. However, because I'm looking at the views of the Industrial Canal, my concern still remains the Harvey Canal. You know, just like a football game is 60 minutes long, well, so is a hurricane. So, you know, my concern of those people living on the West Bank, if they did not evacuate, they need to be extremely attentive to the news media to determine what's going to happen with the Harvey Canal as the day progresses.
Absolutely, Mayor. And actually, you know, that's a point that Margaret has been stressing all morning, because we've talked to several people this morning who, and you really, just like 3 years ago in Katrina, things appear that they might be calm and we might have lucked out, but apparently, and the eye just hitting where now, Margaret?
Oh, it is moving on shore in Terrebonne Parish. It's over the lower portion of Terrebonne Parish right now, and really following the Hurricane Center's forecast very accurately.
Right. So then you still have the other side of the storm coming through. I mean, this is going to be an all-day event, correct?
Oh, yes. And I mean, you can see how this rain extends all the way back into Mississippi and heading into southwest Mississippi. It actually extends over towards Pensacola and farther west. And now look, it's now west of Baton Rouge. So this system is turning out to be pretty large, actually. And it seemed to blow up a little bit more on shore, which is interesting. But you do have all of this moisture moving on shore. We've had periods of very heavy rain, 61 mile per hour winds right now over here in Gulfport. Slidell is 45. We now have the Industrial Canal. All right, we are looking at our live video. Now, as I look at this, it appears as though you're at least a good foot from, and we've got an interview going on. Travers is interviewing someone. It's hard for me to see. That's Craig Tafaro, who's just there, parish president. And it looks as though you still have at least a foot. We're going to get this interview for you in just a moment.
If I may, that is the Industrial Canal, and I believe they're speaking to the Corps with Parish President Craig Tafaro of St. Bernard. But if you look at those walls at Industrial Canal, that is what we do not have in place on the Harvey Canal, and that's why I think it's vitally important that people stay monitored. And I'll be speaking with Jefferson Parish Emergency Operations Center to find out if there's any plans in the making.
Okay, and I understand, well, Mayor Harris, while we have you on the phone right now, I mean, I understand that some areas of Gretna, I think the courthouse, for one, you pointed out, are some of the highest points that you would not be concerned about. But what are the particular areas along the Harvey Canal that are extremely susceptible, and what you're very concerned about at this time?
Well, the 8-foot levees, which extend quite a distance along the Harvey Canal, which is
the neighborhoods. Mayor Harris.
Well, understand that the West Bank is like a bathtub. So if at any point of the Harvey Canal breaking, the bathtub is going to fill up. Fortunately, the city of Gretna downtown courthouse is at the highest pinnacle, being on the natural levee of the river. So there's a 14-foot drop between the river and where people know as St. Cletus Church, which is only 3 miles down. From the river to the expressway is 10-foot drop. So you can imagine if there's flooding on the West Bank, anybody living south of the expressway is going to have some serious problems. And so that's what concerns me is Gretna may have its problems, but the West Bank as a whole has even greater problems.
Well, and that's been our concern really all along, and particularly along the Harvey Canal. And it looked like, Margaret,
I just want to mention you could have a possible tornado. We've had lots of spin-ups over here towards Mimosa Park, Booty, close to Luling. I'm just seeing a bit of a spin here. So just wanted to bring you, just let you know that I am seeing that possibility. And we do have more information on Gustav, but I am looking at the possibility that you could have a tornado moving into Mimosa Park over towards Booty. I am seeing a spin there, and there is the real risk for tornadoes all across southeast Louisiana and coastal Mississippi, where, of course, in coastal Mississippi, we have had numerous warnings, but I was seeing something of a spin and wanted to point that out. I'm so sorry I interrupted you. But also, we do have new information on Gustav. At this point, it is over Louisiana coast, west-southwest of Cocodrie, about 70 miles southwest of New Orleans. It is moving northwest at 15 miles per hour now. We've been showing you that center. I'll put that into motion for you. The maximum sustained winds 110 miles per hour. And at this point, the minimum pressure is 955 millibars. So moving northwest at 15, maximum sustained winds 110 miles per hour. And it is located just west-southwest of Cocodrie at 29.2 north, 90.8 west. So it is indeed onshore, very close to Cocodrie at this time, moving to the northwest at 16 miles per hour. Take it away, please.
Mayor Harris, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we're gonna let you go for a moment, unless you want to hang on the line. We want to get that latest report from Travers Mackel at the Industrial Canal. He has just filed this in speaking with the parish president of St. Bernard, Craig Tefero, and in just one moment we'll talk to the sheriff of St. Bernard Parish as well, Mr. Jack Stevens. But first, here's this report from Travers.
All right, you ready? All right, joined right now with Colonel Beatty. Does this scare you looking at this right now? Does this scare you, Mr. Tefero, looking at this and knowing what happened to Lower Ninth Ward and Araby in your parish last time this happened?
Well, certainly we were aware of the potential for a surge that would come near the top of these eye walls and the T-wall that was repaired just down here in the Lower Ninth Ward. You know, we've done the work, the interim work, to ensure the stability of these walls and looked very, very hard at the factors of safety. We are seeing, obviously, on the west side, on the New Orleans Parish side, some wave overtopping of those walls. That was to be expected. Certainly, we would have preferred not to see this, but we are cautiously optimistic on the stability of those walls through all of our engineering analysis.
I was going to say, topping is obviously not the biggest factor. It is a breach of some time. Are you confident that they will hold? Obviously said they won't.
Well, obviously, we put scour protection in the back behind these walls in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina to protect from that erosion that would happen on the backside of those walls. So, again, cautiously optimistic. As you can see, we don't see massive sheets of water overtopping the wall at this time. More of just the waves as they're pushing over individually.
Is this concerning given the fact that this storm hasn't developed, I guess, the momentum that you thought, just a Category 2 when it got here, that a 3, 4, or 5 could do some more damage?
Well, clearly, you know, in early April, we awarded the largest design build project in history, United States Army Corps of Engineers, almost $700 million to provide for the protection in the form of a surge barrier at the confluence of the MRGO and the GIWW. We're on the way to getting that work done, but we're not there yet. That commitment. This is interim protection. We're doing everything we can to minimize risk. We're working together as a team at the local, state, and federal level.
Just final question here. Is there anything else that you all do as a contingency to prepare if there is some type of breach at this point?
Absolutely. Just north of, in the Gentilly Woods area, just north of I-10 and that, there's 1,800 feet we put in HESCO baskets because we were concerned about the stability. That work was completed about 48 hours ago. So again, we looked at this hard. We're cautiously optimistic. We're working it as a team, and we've got our response teams in place.
All right, Colonel Beatty, we wish for the best. Mr. Farrow, very quickly, how do you and Sheriff Stevens feel about this, looking at this, knowing what it did last time?
Obviously, this was one of our points of entry for water to St. Bernard Parish. Although this is Orleans Parish, you know, our westernmost point, Araby, would be fed by this water system. It looks as though the wall's integrity is holding at this point. But obviously, it is just an interim protection method, and we definitely need to take this.
Hello? Hello, the phone.
Do we have Travers live? Travers Mackle.
Yeah, let's go.
Travers Mackle.
Yes, that's right. We're here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're here at the Industrial Canal. I'm having a tough time hearing you because the wind is whipping, but take a look behind me. That's the Industrial Canal wall on the Orleans Parish side right here. This is not the St. over until the rail yard, as you see, and the side that we're on over here is the Gentilly Upper 9th Ward, New Orleans side of this spill. You can see how high the water is. It almost looks like a clean sheet across from wall to wall. And as the wind, as Margaret talked about earlier, pushes the water from St. Bernard to the Orleans Parish side, those waves are crashing against that wall. It's holding up now. There are no breaks or breaches. It's just being slightly overtopped as these waves hit the top of that wall right there. But this is probably not the most encouraging video. I know you guys just had Craig Tafaro on. There are numerous members of the Army Corps of Engineers and the New Orleans Police Department out here coming out right now to take a look at this on top of the Judge Seaver Bridge. If you guys have any questions, I can hear you now.
Travers, this is Margaret. Looking at this water, are they concerned that the water coming over could somehow undermine that levee? Or do they feel that the water coming over is not going to hurt the levee in any way? Because that would be my concern, that the water constantly spilling over, would that do anything to the levee system?
You know, Margaret, I think the concern is the fact that I don't know if it's going to do anything except just put a pounding on these levee walls. You can see how hard that water is hitting that levee. I think the concern is that how much of a beating can this levee wall, this stone concrete levee wall actually take? You got to figure hours of this is going to happen for the next few hours. So I think the concern is how much of a beating can this wall take? Hopefully, it will be able to take a beating for the next 4 hours and completely hold up. But I think that is the big concern. You know, it's one of those things, I guess you could look at it like a prize fight here. You know, how much of a beating can the boxer take? How much of a beating can this wall on the Orleans Parish side take?
Okay, here's another question. Did they say anything about the barge or the couple of ships that are supposed to be kind of running loose in the Industrial Canal?
Margaret, we haven't seen any ships on the Industrial Canal. I can tell you that. Where we are, I'll kind of show you where we are. We're right here right now on the Judge Seaver Bridge. About 500 yards to the left down there is the Florida Avenue Bridge that recently reopened after Hurricane Katrina. There are no barges on this body of water right here that are broken free or that are running free that can do any damage.
Okay, well, that's good news. Now, what about, what had they said?
Did they give us a warning just now? I think the police are telling everybody to be careful just now up here. So I think they're warning everybody, be careful. You're kind of up here at your own risk, if you will. So you can see right now that there is no barge broken free. I looked at the other side to our left over here. I didn't see any barges broken free. If they are, they're not floating around the water, if you will.
Well, that's
Margaret?
good news. That's good news. So what was that officer telling you, that it's not safe to be up on the bridge taking the photographs, or that it's not safe because of the water flowing out of the industrial canal?
You know, I'm not going to lie to you, Margaret. It's a pretty interesting, pretty dangerous looking site. So I think that they're telling everybody, there are a lot of members of the media up here right now. So I think they're telling everybody, you guys be careful. If you're up here and this thing pops, and we all hope that it doesn't, we know how fast water is going to flood into this upper 9th Ward Gentilly area. Essentially, I would have to believe possibly stranding everybody up on this bridge. So I think they wanted to warn everybody that, you know what, just be careful if you're up here, because if this thing pops, and Margaret, you live in Lake Vista, we all know how quick, when that levee blew on the 17th Street Canal, how quick Lakeview filled up. It was like a bowl. So I think that they're urging everybody that if this levee does not hold up, and we hope that is not the case, we hope that it does hold up, that you guys should be very careful and be smart up here. And I think we are. We're up at a higher level, so therefore, you know, we're getting everybody a good picture of this so they can see what's going on.
You know, what's frightening is that every now and then it looks like there's more water coming over, and I guess that's just the wind, but are you getting the perception that even more is coming over? Do you think the water level is going up, which I kind of feel like it is?
You know, to be honest with you, Margaret, it looks about the same in the 40 minutes that we have been out here, but I gotta tell you, I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility, the fact that this might be going up out here. I mean, I hope it doesn't go up, because I don't know how much more it can take. The water is probably a foot to a foot and a half below that steel wall right over there. So it's one of those things where if it gets any higher, it's going to start spilling over the top, not just crashing over the top. And this is, you can see, I mean, it's one of those things where I can talk all day over this video, but I think that anybody watching this in the city of New Orleans probably has a sick feeling in their stomach right now. And, you know, it's one of those things, let's just all hope and pray this wall doesn't come crashing down.
I agree with you. You know what I want to do? I am going to call Mike Crozier over at the National Weather Service, get his take on this, and I'm going to let Melanie take over on some of the questioning as we continue to watch this. I want to get a sense of maybe how much water we could get, because I feel like watching this that we're starting to rise.
And I'm actually...
And, you know, I'll also...
Go ahead, Travis.
I'll also point something out as our photographer, Krista Costanza, keeps getting some shots here. This overtopping that you're seeing is not just happening right here by the Judge Sieber Bridge. The whole wall all the way down to the Florida Avenue Bridge essentially looks like that. That these waves are hitting the whole wall and crashing, and that's probably the biggest concern, that it's not just one select area right here. This is happening to what's essentially the whole wall from the Florida Avenue Bridge all the way to the Judge Sieber Bridge right here. So therefore, you know, like I said, it's only how much, you know, we have an NBC crew here too, Margaret. Margaret Potter, who's been doing some work from NBC, is going to join us here now. You know, you've done a lot of work covering Katrina and a lot of Florida storms in Miami. Right. Dangerous site we're looking at here.
Well, absolutely, and you were making the point that water is hitting that wall really hard, and the concern is beyond the overtopping, obviously, and the question is whether it breaches. If you go up the bridge just a little farther and look down at that angle, there's a point beyond that pine tree where the water is really rolling over like a waterfall, and that's the area that concerned us, because it was really coming over. And we couldn't tell whether that was just an overtopping or something beyond that. We still think it's an overtopping, but obviously that's a big concern. We did go on the other side, you know, the infamous east side, which broke after Katrina. We drove along there a little bit earlier, and that looked fine.
It did look fine, which is very encouraging.
Saw no overtopping, and we saw it seemed to be very strong. We were walking along the wall. We didn't see any at all. But again, this is all wind driven, so it wouldn't be going over that side anyway. This is just because the wind is blowing this way.
And, you know, we were telling all of our viewers, Mark, if this wall pops, we're all going to know it, because it's going to fill up in here like a bowl here. And we all hope that's not the case. And the wind is starting to pick up, so we got to imagine that it's only going to get stronger and stronger as the next few hours keep coming.
Yeah, and as you look in this area, for the first block or two here, it's an industrial area, and then it's all houses down that way. So that's obviously a big concern. This is what Michael Chertoff was talking about.
Absolutely right.
Security Secretary. He said that if the wind and the water is just right, and boy, the wind is blowing now, that you could have this overtopping. And here we have it. This is what he was talking about.
And you know, something else to point out, Margaret, as Mark just brought up, behind us, we all know is the upper Ninth Ward. That was an area that was devastated by Hurricane Katrina. A lot of people have moved back into that community. And right now, if you're watching this, we're not trying to scare anybody, but this is the reason why Mary Nagin called for this mandatory evacuation, because if this levee, God forbid, breaks, or if this water keeps coming up, they could see some serious street flooding in this neighborhood.
Well, this is absolutely what everybody feared. I can see that the police are stopping the cars from going over the bridge now. So this is obviously a dangerous situation. Everybody recognizes it, and this is exactly why they wanted everybody to get out of here, because you just don't know with these storms what's going to happen. I think for a while people thought, well, we're going to escape any problems because it seemed to be pretty light. We were on the outer edges, and they still might. But this suggests that this always has been a dangerous situation. Hurricanes, you never know what they're going to do, where things are going to break, where they're going to move. And so emergency managers that have to make this call to move people while the sun is still shining have a very difficult job. But this is the reason why they do it, because you just don't know.
And we're getting hit with another feeder band of rain, which is going to essentially dump more water into this canal, which is not a good thing, because our meteorologist was just telling us that she wants to know how much higher the water is going to get, because right now, the waves are just crashing against this wall and splashing over, but if the water gets any higher, it's going to start spilling over.
Well, that's what's actually happening over here to the left. At this angle, you can't see it. It's beyond that big, tall tree, but it's pouring over there. It's not splashing. This is splash, but over there it was rolling over,
right.
And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you can't see it very well, but it is happening out that way. You can see it from the crown at the top of the bridge. We got away from that area because this superstructure was really rattling in the wind, and we thought we better get down here.
And let me tell you, this bridge has had its share of problems. So it's Mark Potter from NBC News. Margaret and Melanie will probably join him in a little bit, because we're going to stay out here for a while. Any more questions? I can hear you all once again.
Travers, it's Melanie, and I'm sitting here with Sheriff Jack Stevens. I'm going to let you go do that, but can you give us an idea of for how far down you can see this happening over the levee wall here? I mean, about how many miles?
You know, Melanie, the good thing is it's not that far. It's probably less than a half a mile. It goes from the Florida Avenue Bridge to the Judge Seaver Bridge, that stretch of the Industrial Canal, which is probably a half a mile max, probably 600 or 700 yards. So it's not that bad. But once again, the water's picking up and this wall is taking a serious beating. So if you guys have to talk to Jack Stevens, we'll be out here. You can always come back to us in the next couple of minutes.
Oh, we want to keep this picture up if we can, Travers, and I'll talk to Sheriff Stevens so that the viewers can continue to see the Industrial Canal right here, obviously waves overtopping the levee. And meantime, our meteorologist, Margaret Orr, is trying to get some information for us on the possible consequences of this. Sheriff Stevens from St. Bernard Parish, of course, who on the other side of the canal experienced some devastating effects of the levees breaking during Katrina. What's going through your mind right now, Sheriff, looking at these pictures?
Well, obviously it's a very ominous image, and it causes a great deal of anxiety. The problem, I guess, still is that the wind is out of the east and will cause a rising tide. As soon as the wind turns around to the west, it should start moving some of that water out. The problem is that then the wave action will shift to the eastern side of the Industrial Canal and then start to put pressure on that wall over there. The reassuring thing, frankly, is Colonel Beatty is embedded with President Tafaro at the government complex. I was with him just now on the bridge. He feels that the construction of the wall will withstand that. He has a fairly high degree of confidence in that they can stand the scouring from that wave action. But under any circumstances, I mean, this brings back some awful memories of the failure of that system at the Industrial Canal. Of course, if it does fail on the eastern side, the whole lower Ninth Ward would then again be flooded, and a major portion of Araby and St. Bernard Parish would probably be underwater.
Oh, absolutely. And how prepared are, I mean, this is really what we were afraid of happening, Sheriff. And, at this point, the levee has not broken, but to see those absolutely scary, frankly, images of the waves topping the levee there on, again, the New Orleans side of the Industrial Canal, the word that you used was the best word that comes to my mind is just anxiety, as everyone remembers the images we saw 3 years ago. And the question we've been asking after we saw such a proactive approach in getting people out of harm's way, which we do know was such a success compared to what happened 3 years ago. The question we've been asking, Sheriff, is are we prepared for another aftermath like that?
Well, I mean, I guess in a sense that we know what the worst case scenario is, and it's hard to imagine St. Bernard being any more impacted by any hurricane than Katrina. We do know what to expect, and the response would be, I mean, more appropriate than it was last time. The problem is, how many hits can people take in their lives and decide to rebuild? And I think this whole event has created a state of anxiety and confusion and doubt about maybe the entire region. But under any circumstances, this is a good test of the Corps' improvements following Katrina. So far, it seems to be that everything is holding up. The industrial canal is obviously a weak spot. Colonel Beatty, I heard in his interview with Fletcher, said that we're not at the 2011 goal yet, but this is we're on our way there. And candidly, I think that had this event happened with the old flood walls constructed pre-Katrina, that they would have already failed. I don't think that there's any doubt in anyone's mind of that. But under any circumstances, this brings back some awful memories. And candidly, if this east wind keeps blowing, my experience, and I'm certainly not an expert in this area, but I've had to swim out of my house twice in my life, so I guess that does make me a semi-expert about it. If this east wind keeps blowing, you should see a continued rise in the tide, and I'm sure in the last couple of hours the tide has gone up. And that's the kind of thing that I think threatens that wall more than anything. What we're hopeful is that fairly soon the wind will turn to the west, start blowing that water out. Of course, that will, again, shift the wave action to what we're looking at right now, which is the eastern side of the industrial canal, and will determine whether or not construction on that side has been appropriate to withstand the type of weather event that we're dealing with now.
Sheriff, we're going to, I'm being told, Cynthia Willard Lewis is on the phone. Is that who we have? Councilwoman Lewis, is that who we have? Are you there, Councilwoman? Okay. Are you looking? Good morning. Good morning to you, I guess as best as can be expected. And Sheriff Stevens from St. Bernard Parish really said it perfectly. It just creates such an anxiety among residents watching this now and online from across the country. Is this something you guys were prepared for in Orleans Parish?
Well, we're certainly, again, prepared and hoping for the best. We're monitoring the situation, and it is our hope, myself joined by our council president and vice president, to be in the field shortly. Right now, the levees are holding. That is a great note of confidence there. And if the pattern continues with the storm at the same level, we should be, we're continuing to pray that everything will be okay. This overtopping is a result of the wave action, and so we're just holding firm for the next few hours.
Councilwoman Willard Lewis, actually, since we have our meteorologist Margaret Orrin here, and you mentioned, and you do sound, and the way that the leaders have been describing it from parish to parish is cautiously optimistic, and you mentioned if the pattern continues the way it is on the storm, hopefully we'll be okay. I'm going to ask Margaret if she could, Margaret, would you be able to accurately at this time help out with that statement if the pattern continues the way that Gustav is headed right now? And again, you can see these live pictures of the water on the industrial canal. And if you're just joining us, this isn't the St. Bernard side, this is the New Orleans Upper Ninth Ward side.
Okay, here is the information. At the last hour, it was at 10.5 feet at the industrial canal, the gauge. This hour, it is at 11.24 feet. So we have had quite a rise on the industrial canal in 1 hour. Plus, you can see that water is still flowing towards the industrial canal. So it is believed that it's possible there could be more of a rise. It's not done with. Now, the good news is the levee construction is fairly good. It is armored. So the hope is that the levee will hold and that the water will not go much higher. But the truth is it could go a little bit higher. So this is something we're going to have to watch carefully. The wind is not dying down. Look at Belle Chase, we've got a 63-mile-per-hour wind. So you're still going to have those waves. You're going to have the sloshing effect taking place. And that is a big concern. But as for the water coming over and causing some scouring or damaging the levee, at this point, that's not expected with the wave action that is occurring. The concern is that it could go higher. Now, Travers Mackle is out there right now. Travers, what are you seeing now?
Well, Margaret, much the same. The good news is is that the rain has died down. We had a feeder band that was pounding myself when I was out there with Mark Potter from NBC News a second ago. But look, it hasn't changed. The wind is still blowing this water from the industrial canal hard into this concrete levee wall right here. It hasn't changed in the last hour. I don't know if that's good or bad. I guess the good is that it hasn't picked up, it hasn't started to spill over essentially. The bad is that, like I said, this wall is taking a beating and is probably going to continue to take a beating. Let's just hope that it holds up because, like we said, the rail yard is to the left here, and it's a heavy industrial area after that. But then, as we all know, and I know you all talked to Miss Willard Lewis, we have the Upper Ninth Ward, we have Poland Avenue, then Franklin Avenue, then Elysian Fields. These are all areas that took a big beating in Hurricane Katrina and have fought very hard to come back. A lot of residents moving back into those areas, doing quite a good job rebuilding their homes. So, like I said before, we're not trying to frighten anybody. We're just showing you what's happening right now. But if you live in one of those areas, you're hoping this wall holds up and does not break at this point.
Okay, Travers, which side is the Musicians Village on?
That's
Melanie
on
and Margaret, repeat that. It's getting windy. Go ahead.
New Orleans. That's on.
Is it the Musicians Village on this side? On the side where we're getting
the Musicians Village is it is on the Upper Ninth Ward side, I believe.
And the houses from Brad Pitt's houses.
I'm not sure.
The Brad Pitt houses are not. Those are on the other side.
Okay.
The Brad Pitt, the new homes that Brad Pitt built are essentially across the Judge Sieber Bridge. They're right on the other side. That's right where the canal broke last time in the lower Ninth Ward. We've all seen those devastating pictures. But I think our photographer, Chris, is going to try to zoom in. I don't know if we can get to one that far across the industrial canal, but I think she's going to try to zoom into one to show you one of these Brad Pitt make it right homes under construction right now. The good news is for that area, the water is not hitting the wall that hard, if at all. That's the good news. The bad news is that it's hitting the New Orleans side, or the Orleans Parish side. And once again, these sites tell the whole story right here. You see the water hitting it. It goes from for people who are familiar with New Orleans, the Florida Avenue Bridge, which is where the old Florida housing development used to be by Lawless High School, all the way to the Judge Sieber Bridge is where this wall is taking a beating, getting pounded right now.
Let me just mention this real quickly, Travers. This is changing the subject. It's only for a moment. We do have tornado warnings in effect for Washington, St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, over into Livingston, St. Helena parishes. We have a line of storms wrapping around Gustav, and we get numerous reports of possible tornadoes as all of this moves to the west at 70 miles per hour. There goes one, it looks like, right there. That one is west of Greensburg. So the potential for numerous tornadoes on the North Shore. They are generally light. They are quick spin-up tornadoes on the North Shore. We are watching this very carefully. As for the Industrial Canal, yes, you've had a break in the rain there. The rain is mainly to your north. It is very heavy. The wind still really blowing at Belle Chase at 63 miles per hour.
And we want to remind everyone, actually we'll want to tell you that in just 40 minutes from now, you can count on hearing something from President Bush coming out of his office. We will bring that to you live. President Bush will be speaking on Hurricane Gustav in about 40 minutes from now. But now, Travers, what else can you tell us about what Margaret was talking about?
She talked about those tornadoes. The wind is really whipping out here. I'm not a meteorologist like Margaret or the rest of our crew of meteorologists in-house and the ones that are helping us from around the station. But I can tell you it's probably 40 miles an hour, if not stronger out here. We're getting whipped around on the top of this bridge, and we have a good vantage point being up here on top of this bridge. Now, we talked about what's over here in Gentilly. A couple of days before Hurricane Katrina, we went and got them putting sandbags out near the Industrial Canal by France Road. That is not this part of the Industrial Canal. That is not the part that they were reinforcing with sandbags. As far as we know and as far as we can see, there are no sandbags. There is no lining behind this. This concrete wall is all you have. So, like I said, it looks sturdy. It didn't break last time. It didn't fail last time. But there aren't any sandbags. There isn't anything, whereas if a section goes, there's going to be reinforcements to stop it. And maybe that's what the Corps of Engineers was doing up here. Maybe they were up here trying to find out, hey, do we have to fly in or do we have to drive in sandbags or anything like that to reinforce this levee wall? Like I was saying before, I don't see how you pump this water out into the lake at this point in the storm. I don't think that's doable. And you know, it's one of these things where I don't know how you deal with something like this.
And Travers, when you talk about the sandbags, and obviously you're from here, you know the area like nobody else, you and Fletcher both, and you know about the sandbagging. Really though, when if the levees were to break, how much would the sandbags have helped though? I mean, when you look at a situation, you know, and again, we don't know how long we're going to be looking at this picture out of New Orleans.
Melanie, to answer your question, they probably wouldn't help much right now. We all remember the scenes from Lakeview and from Gentilly and obviously here in the lower Ninth Ward. If this levee or a portion of this levee were to go, where we are standing would essentially be filled up with water in a matter of seconds, if not minutes. You know, we've told our crew, and we hope this doesn't happen. We hope this is a worst case scenario. We have told everybody that we are with that if we see any part of this go, we are jumping in the car and driving as fast as we can to try and beat this water surge. You know, we all heard those horror stories after Hurricane Katrina with people living in Lakeview and Gentilly in the lower Ninth, where they said it just seemed like the water came up in a matter of minutes and all of a sudden it was 8 feet high. We are hoping that is not the case. We are hoping that we're going to be standing here later this afternoon. The water will have subsided with the wind, and we'll be talking about how this wall held up, that it took a beating, and it may need some help to be reinforced, but it took a beating.
Travers?
You know what? We have a security guard with us, Aaron from Oklahoma.
Travers,
hang on. Scouted everything out. I'm going to kind of bring him in right here.
But Travers,
he's been on top of the bridge. This is Aaron, one of our security guys from Oklahoma. You went and looked over there. What did you see, Aaron?
There's minor, the water coming over the top, over the wall, and a little bit coming before. It looks like some sort of a gate. There's minor street flooding happening over the first streets of the neighborhood over on the other side.
Kind of similar to what we're seeing right here?
Yes. Not a break actually in the water or anything like that, but just coming over the top.
And you Aaron, thanks a lot. Once again, it's Aaron, one of our security guys from Oklahoma, out here to make sure. Take another look over here, Melanie. So I guess we could say now that it's expanded from the Florida Avenue Bridge all the way to the Intracoastal Waterway. According to what Aaron tells us and what we can see, there is water spilling over the top of this.
Travers, I got it. Yeah, hang on one second, though. Margaret has been very anxious to say something here.
Travers, if there were to be, are you listening to me? If there were to
I'm
be
listening.
a break, that water would come out faster than you could run and jump in a car. Think about what happened at the 17th Street Canal. It is a major wall and it spreads out quickly, you're right, but anything in its initial path is bulldozed. Look back to the houses. They were knocked off their foundation, they were knocked down. So this is not something you could outrun, and it's going to follow to the lowest point and just fill up. So my advice, if it breaks, you stay where you are, up high, and you let a helicopter come get you, okay? That's my 2 cents.
Well, that's good advice, Margaret. We're with Aaron. He's a military guy, so I'm sure he's well versed in that. But hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully that is an absolute worst case scenario, and we never have to deal with anything like that. Like I said, the rain, for the most part, has essentially stopped. It's not raining, but the wind is getting wicked out here, and it is just beating up on us for the most part. You saw when I was out here with Mark Piner a second ago, the wind was just blowing us around, and then the rain picked up. You know, this is one of these things that we didn't get to see during Hurricane Katrina because nobody saw the actual levees and how they were doing. And so this is interesting for all of our viewers. I know we've been talking about how we're on worldwide on the web, we're on digital TV, or direct TV, excuse me. But I mean, this is something that you can see a New Orleans levee right now holding up, taking on this storm, taking on Gustav and standing up to it right now. I mean, those waves are pounding against that seawall right now. And I got to tell you what, it's holding up. We hope it holds up for a little while longer. Another concern, I'm going to have Krista point at this, is the top of the Judge Seaver Bridge. You heard Mark mention this a second ago. It's rattling and shaking. Now, I know this bridge is kind of old faithful. It's had its share of problems. I don't think it's ever been blown down by any stretch of the imagination. But that's why we moved down here, and that's why Mark move their crew
We're
down looking
at
it. The Judge Seaver Bridge is shaking pretty good right now in this rain.
Travers, can you hear me? We want to, Travers, we want to we want to keep you here. And actually, I can relay any questions for you as well, since you're standing there at the scene. But as we look at the water overtopping the industrial canal on the New Orleans side, first of all, Norman Robinson joins us here at WDSU, and also Senator David Vitter joins us as well. Good morning, Senator Vitter. Are you looking at this scene?
The operations center, but I'm following all of this carefully, obviously, including that overtopping.
What are your concerns at this point, Senator? I know we've been talking about hurricane protection, especially as it relates to the levees where they hold up. This is a flood wall. This is the same flood wall that's been problematic ad infinitum, you name it, historically. Right. This thing continues to be a problem. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are there's a big difference between some overtopping and a significant breach. And so that's what we're all monitoring. And obviously, we don't want there to be a significant breach. We don't want any flooding, but some overtopping would be a whole lot more limited than a significant breach. We don't know of any breach that has occurred yet, so we're following that carefully.
Well, you're absolutely right, and we don't want to over-exaggerate the point, but considering, the images we saw 3 years ago, obviously this is a very sensitive, timely issue. We're watching it closely. Are we prepared, Senator, to handle an aftermath? How are we prepared more so than we were 3 years ago if the levee does breach? Because everyone is anxious watching these pictures, as you can imagine.
I think it's been clear over the last 3 days that everybody, from the individual to the family to local, state, and federal government, is far better prepared in every way. That's the good news. And so we'll deal with whatever we have to deal with. But let's not jump the gun. Obviously, we all hope there's nothing like a significant breach.
All right. Obviously, Senator, no one is jumping the gun. There's simply concern that the levees are being overtopped. This is very reminiscent of what happened during Hurricane Katrina. So the question here is, how do we get to the point where we keep this from happening? Do we close off both ends of those canals?
Well, in fact, that is being done. But as you know, our major work to get a true 100-year level of protection isn't complete. So that's a vulnerability we face right now. That work to have what you'd call a true 100-year level of protection won't be complete until the 2011 hurricane season. When it's complete, there will be some significant closure that'll prevent that huge buildup of water into the industrial canal. So that's the biggest factor we need to build to prevent a lot of the scenario and the overtopping we're seeing right now.
Absolutely, Senator. Are you aware who we would like to know? We know a lot of federal officials, several federal officials from FEMA, across the board really came in to help prepare Louisiana for Gustav. Who is still on the grounds in southern Louisiana, and who, if you know, is out there looking at the scene firsthand and not on TV, but out looking there at the industrial canal?
Well, I was just on a conference call a half an hour ago with General Van Antwerp. He's the chief of engineers, the top uniformed officer of the Corps of Engineers. He's in New Orleans at the command center. They're monitoring things both from some in-person lookouts and also monitors and cameras they have around the system. So they're looking at things very, very carefully. And obviously we were talking about the industrial canal because the general water level is probably a foot or less than a foot from the top of those flood walls. And then with wave action, you obviously have that overtopping that you're seeing on your live shots.
Senator, have you been talking with the Corps of Engineers and in particular the Federal Emergency Management Agency about this particular concern, the overtopping of this levee and whether or not, well, let's correct ourselves first. This is not a levee. This is a flood wall. There is a major difference. Have you been talking to them about the overtopping of this particular flood wall?
Sure, and we're all monitoring it, and we've been talking about any vulnerability in the system like that. and folks are here, not long distance, but right here. Secretary Chertoff of Homeland Security is here. General Van Antwerp is in New Orleans. So obviously, we're looking at everybody's looking at this real carefully.
Now, what does this say, Senator, as we look at this towards getting some more immediate action? I mean, is it enough to say that sure, we're working on this, we expect to have a completed system, at least to the extent that it can protect us from a hurricane Category 3 by 2011 or 12, or should there be something more urgent and immediate here?
Well, the first thing we need to do is push that work forward and get it completed absolutely as soon as possible. I'm not saying we stop there with 100-year protection, but that is the first step to accelerate that and do that as quickly as possible. That would include gates into the industrial canal, which would significantly change the situation we're seeing in terms of your live shots there. And then beyond that, we need to go further and plan out higher levels of protection, including major coastal restoration work. We're closing Mr. Go, but we have a lot of work to do in terms of restoring the surrounding marshland to build back up that natural type of protection that protects eastern New Orleans and St. Bernard.
Senator, on watching these pictures again, and you're absolutely right, and we don't want to speculate, but again, we're continuing to monitor the situation out at the industrial canal here. What are your thoughts watching these pictures on the Harvey Canal?
Things, and when I talked to them, which was about an hour ago, they were feeling pretty good about that. I believe the water level is lower there compared to the top of the protections than what you're looking at in the industrial canal. So they feel pretty good about the situation, particularly in comparison to the predictions 36 hours ago, which were very, very serious for the West Bank. But again, we just need to monitor this carefully and wait and see, because it's not over till it's over.
That's no question about that, and this is going to be a test of the work that's been done so far. Back to the overtopping of the industrial canal on the Gentilly side. Right. Obviously, it's not as bad as you said that a wholesale breach would be, because less water is flowing onto the land side there in Gentilly. What kind of work have you been told, Senator, that's been done on that particular canal?
Well, I know that if I'm correct about where you're describing, that is the old canal walls that were not breached in Katrina.
Exactly.
And therefore were not rebuilt. But they have been fortified, including in the last week. They were specifically fortified in various temporary ways for this storm. And obviously that's an area we need to watch carefully, because quite frankly, I have greater confidence in the walls that were completely redesigned and rebuilt since Katrina than in the walls that didn't breach in Katrina and were not completely redesigned and rebuilt, at least not yet. So we're looking at those sorts of areas very, very carefully.
Absolutely. Senator, are you confident in saying that as well? Are you confident that the Army Corps of Engineers and the work that has been put into these levees over the past 3 years was done at the quickest pace that it could be realistically?
Oh, I think it could have been done quicker. You're constantly fighting the federal bureaucracy and the normal pace of doing things, which is way too slow. So our whole delegation is constantly pushing back on that and constantly trying to accelerate that.
Senator, with the eyes of the nation watching us and keying in on this area specifically because of the disaster that occurred here in 2005 of August, do you think that perhaps you'll have more leverage now or more interest? There will be more incentive, more momentum when you go back into legislative session on Capitol Hill to do something more substantial about protecting the entire coastal region, not just Louisiana, but the all of the areas of the coastal United States?
Well, I certainly hope so, and you're right. There are other areas that are far less protected than even what we're looking at in New Orleans. For instance, home area Lafourche, Terrebonne, that's very, very vulnerable, and we've been working hard to try to push forward the Morganza to the Gulf project to protect that in a reasonable way. And the other argument I'll certainly be making with others, which should resonate more with my colleagues and the American people, given gas prices in the last 3 months, is that we're talking about an area that's vital, not just because we live here, but vital for the country in terms of serving the needs of the country, particularly in terms of our energy production. We are the energy lifeline of the country. If you look at energy flows, both oil and natural gas and refining capacity, an enormous part of our entire nation's needs flow through Louisiana. And so that's why it's of national significance.
I know when you were talking about getting more of the offshore drilling revenue, that was a hard sell for some people in other parts of the country. Why do you think that's the case, Senator?
Well, the biggest obstacle we faced was simply trying to shift revenue that currently goes in to the federal pot and shift it elsewhere, particularly when you have deficit spending. But we did that successfully and particularly focused on new production that's coming online so that it's not a drain to existing federal revenues right now. And so we're able to navigate that successfully. And that means over the next short term, we'll have enormous resources coming into the state from that source, which will be devoted to hurricane protection, coastal restoration, and hurricane evacuation routes.
And in such a critical political year, Senator, without getting too much into politics, we did talk to Senator Barack Obama yesterday. What role do you think Gustav and its effects will play on the presidential race?
Oh, I really don't know. I haven't given that a moment's notice. I hope everybody has the same reaction, which is to react to this as Americans, not as Democrats or Republicans or anything else, but react as Americans and meet the need and deal with this situation.
Senator, I wanted to ask you also about your perspective as a leader in this area. One of the key leaders who's instrumental to having the federal government do its due diligence in taking care of the people in this district. We are broadcasting nationwide on DirecTV channel 361, and many of the people who live in that area where the levee is being, where the flood wall is being overtopped,
sure,
have recently begun rebuilding their homes, sure, trying to reestablish their neighborhoods. Sure. What words of comfort can you give to them now?
Well, listen, I don't know if any words are going to suffice. We're certainly all focused on this to monitor it and to respond to any need out there. And I do believe, particularly compared to 3 years ago, the feds and the state and the locals are better prepared, way ahead of the curve, better coordination. So I do think we're ahead of the curve in that regard. But listen, this is still a powerful and a serious storm, so there's going to be, unfortunately, some real damage. So we need to come in after the fact as well and deal with that real damage. And then we need to be very aggressive in getting this work complete to build those barriers, those gates, that higher protection for all of South Louisiana.
Is the problem particularly the funding, Senator Vitter? I mean, we know that's obviously a part of it, but do you think that leaders on the national scope still need to pay more attention and understand the significance of the levee protection system?
Well, folks still do need to pay real attention and need to understand that this part of the world isn't just a great place for us to live. It serves the nation in terms of trade and commerce with the river and in terms of energy and energy infrastructure, number one. But number two, in terms of the 100-year level of protection, our immediate work, that is funded. We have gotten every penny of what the Corps says that will cost. The challenge is just the volume of the work and getting that done as quickly as possible.
Senator Vitter, we're expecting to hear from the president as he addresses the region on Gustav at 11:10. He is going to address this situation that's occurring now with the storm. What do you expect him to say?
Well, I'm sure he's monitoring it very carefully, I think, in Austin, and is in contact with his top leadership, most of whom are right here on the ground. So I hope that will be reassuring to folks. And I know he's going to, again, commit to respond quickly and efficiently and fully to anything we face through today and beyond.
Senator, to put your point into perspective, into greater perspective about the overtopping not being as serious as a breach would be, we just saw a photographer walk up to the wall, to that flood wall, to take pictures and then calmly walk away. So it would amount to what is considered to be an overspray at this moment, or at this point. Were it serious, I don't think that photographer would actually be walking around calmly in that area.
Sure, and look, I don't want to trivialize. There'll be some flooding, and there'll almost certainly be some real home damage, and that is really devastating news to the individuals involved. I don't want to trivialize any of that, but certainly that's a different planet than if we were to have a major breach, as we had several with Katrina. So we'll just continue monitoring and obviously hope that that we don't cross that line.
What do you think is a realistic time frame to have the levees built to where you would be confident like that in all of the levees around the New Orleans area? What's a realistic time frame?
Well, we are on track to do this immediate work by hurricane season 2011. Now, the original target was hurricane season 2010, and I am constantly working to get it back to that at least and protect us better for that one additional hurricane season. Now, we can't stop there. We need to do a lot of work beyond that in terms of coastal restoration and some higher levels of levee protection for areas. So the Corps and outside experts are already at work designing that, and we need to be aggressive about that as well. But the immediate challenge is completing this work, which I'd like to do by 2010.
Senator, is it fair, or are we overreaching, or should we even be expecting the kind of protection that they have for, say, in the Netherlands? Is that something that is reasonable for us to expect here in the United States?
Well, I think we need a higher level of protection even beyond this 100-year level, and I think it's very fair and reasonable to demand that, and that's exactly what our delegation is doing, particularly when, again, we don't come here to buy second homes on a beachfront. We live here to serve the nation in terms of energy and commerce and in a lot of other ways, but particularly in those two categories.
And Senator, we spoke to Senator Mary Landrieu actually this morning and yesterday for the past few days as well. Where are you two on the same page in terms of the rebuilding of the levees and securing the levees?
Oh, absolutely. Not only on the same page, we're in the same room most of
well,
today.
Obviously we all want to get them built, but I mean,
we were on the same conference call with General Van Antwerp and the head of the Environment and Public Works Committee, so we are both completely committed to this common vision.
Senator, let me ask you this. Melanie referred to her conversation with Senator Landrieu, and Senator Landrieu made the statement that she sometimes has to defend the choice of living here in the region that we live in, which is vulnerable to hurricanes, specifically because we are in this rather unique geographic landscape setting. How often are you engaged in conversations with people who wonder why you live in an area that is so vulnerable?
Oh, that comes up, and Mary's right about that. I think understanding of why we're here and what we contribute to the nation, though, is growing every day. And I think, quite frankly, to be blunt, it's grown over the last 3 months along with the price at the pump. So I think there is somewhat greater appreciation because folks are so properly focused on energy and our need for energy independence.
But in 3 years left, if the plan were to continue on its course and the plan would be finished by 2011, of course, there still are 3 full hurricane seasons left. Do you think that level of confidence from across the country would continue to grow that way? Because we know that it could be a devastating effect had we had another strong storm pass through before our levees were finished.
Well, again, it would also be a devastating effect on the nation's energy supply. So I think that's a very, very important point to constantly make in terms of what this area means to the nation.
Senator, as we try to communicate with our photographer, we're going to try to get a larger perspective on exactly where this flood wall is as it relates to the general populace around the area. If you guys could do that while the senator talks to us about the Morganza spillway, exactly what is that, Senator, and how crucial is that to our protecting this coast against storm surge?
Well, I think what you're referring to is the Morganza to the Gulf Hurricane Protection Project, which is something that's been on the books forever, and we're trying to actually put shovels in the ground and move forward. That is critical protection, particularly for the Lafourche-Terrebonne area, which are have little to no protection right now. And so our whole delegation has been trying to move that forward and get it off dead center, because that's critical protection for Lafourche and Terrebonne. This storm, if this storm had built up as was being predicted 36 hours ago, it would have been a far harsher blow to a lot of areas, including Lafourche and Terrebonne, and we need much better protection there. And we're certainly working on that diligently with local officials and the levee boards, but we need to move forward the Morganza to the Gulf project as a big part of that.
Do you think that's probably going to be a lot easier sell now that we've faced with another situation like this 3 years since Hurricane Katrina?
I hope so. I don't want to make any predictions because there have been a lot of obstacles to it, but I certainly hope folks are paying attention to this storm and its path, because it's exactly the path that makes Morganza to the Gulf so necessary.
A while ago, you alluded to the energy disruption, the flow of energy to this country, which we so vitally depend on, much of it from Louisiana, a fourth of the crude oil production, and 15% of the natural gas. And of course, 56% of the imported oil comes through the Gulf of Mexico. Now, to what extent do you expect the energy flow or the production of crude and natural gas and imported oil to be disrupted because of this particular storm?
Well, I think there'll be a little bit of a blip, but I don't think it'll be major. I don't mean to wish harm on folks, but sometimes I wish it would be a lot more major for folks to wake up to what this infrastructure means to them. But, the industry and others are really good at minimizing the disruption, and I think with this storm lessening in impact, I think that disruption will be relatively short.
Lay out for us, if you will, Senator, if all things could be accomplished, what would be the ideal levee and flood and storm surge protection plan for the lower coast of Louisiana?
Well, look, first we need to finish this immediate work sooner rather than later. And again, I'd like to do it at least by 2010. Then we need to finish designing higher levels of protection for populated areas and move forward with that. And we need to build that basic protection for relatively unprotected areas like Lafourche and Terrebonne. And then something we haven't mentioned much, but it fits into all of this, very important component is coastal restoration, because we need to rebuild our marshland. We need to rebuild that natural protection. If we just build levees, and if they end up being 20 years from now the only thing that delineates our populated areas from the Gulf of Mexico, if the Gulf is right on the other side of them, we've lost the battle. You can't build a levee strong enough or high enough for that. So we need that coastal restoration work, which is getting going, but we need to be aggressive in that category as well.
What's the timeline on that for you, Senator? When would you like to see that completed?
Well,
realistically,
it depends. Yeah, it depends on what you mean by complete, because there are all sorts of projects that could be undertaken. I would like to see spades in the ground and major projects, including major diversion projects, being well underway, and many of them nearing completion within 5 years.
Within 5 years?
Yes.
Is that something that you will push for when you go back into session?
It's something we've all been pushing for nonstop. Absolutely.
And what's been the reception so far?
Supportive, but at a too often bureaucratic pace. It's great to be supportive, but we need to get with it and get on a real-world timeline and not a bureaucratic Corps of Engineers timeline. And we need to get a hold of this and turn the corner. We're still losing a football field of land in coastal Louisiana every 38 minutes. We need to slow that down, stop it, and eventually reverse that.
Well, I'm going to make a parallel, if I may. The federal government, the state government, and local governments have been remarkable in their effort to prepare for this storm. They have been wonderful. They are to be lauded. What's it going to take for the same kind of effort and efficiency in getting ahead of the storm issue to begin with, so that you won't have this frantic reaction every time there's something occurring in the Gulf of Mexico that might devastate our coast?
Well, it's a great question, Norman. I think the big difference is with events like these, folks work in a real emergency atmosphere and on that basis and on that timeline. But then after these events have passed, too many folks slip back to the old bureaucratic timeline and processes, which are just way too slow and too cumbersome. We need to streamline that so that we can work in this spirit and at near this pace all the time, not just in an emergency.
And when you talk about the bureaucratic pace, the Corps has complained too about their hands being tied because they have certain protocol to follow, and they can only do as much as Congress allots the funding for them to do. So is it fair to hold the Corps responsible when they really are at the beck and call of federal officials who determine?
They're right in that we need to take shackles off of them in many cases that slow them down. We have too many regulatory and environmental related requirements that take forever and that invite lawsuits over everything they do, whatever they do. And we need to streamline that process and get rid of those lawsuits that sometimes eat up years.
Senator Landrieu has talked about the need for reforming the Corps of Engineers. She didn't say to what extent, but how do you weigh in on that?
In the Water Resources Bill, I drafted language that streamlines the process and also establishes what's called the Louisiana Water Resources Council, which is a body of outside independent experts to work hand in hand with the Corps to give lend them expertise, and also to help streamline the process so that mistakes or arguments aren't caught at the back end of design after 8 years of design, but they're addressed at the front end. So we've started that reform work, but we certainly do have further to go.
You mentioned the Louisiana Water Resources Council. Is this an entity with any teeth, or is it just acting in a perfunctory capacity as something to recommend ideas and solutions?
Well, it's a work in progress, so we'll have to see over time. But it's supposed to have teeth, and it's supposed to bring real outside independent expertise to bear with the Corps, so that some of the design and other mistakes of the past are not made again, and to streamline the process. We've
been talking about the extreme level of cooperation that exists between the federal, state, and local level at this point. What about the level of cooperation among federal, state, and local officials and environmentalists over the issue of what needs to be done to protect the coast? Well, we need vast improvement there, and that's part of what I'm talking about. I mean, look, I'm not saying throw environmental concerns out the window. I'm not saying that at all. But we've created this core process that is very bureaucratic, mostly over environmental issues, and that invites, in many cases, environmental lawsuits that tie up work for years. And we need to get beyond that. In our neck of the woods, the biggest environmental issue we have is coastal restoration. And everybody needs to recognize that and streamline the process. So what would you suggest as a compromise with the environmentalists, which might be a hard sell for some? To lessen the time period that it takes to move projects through to completion, and to greatly curtail folks' ability to go to court and litigate over all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Senator, we were talking about expanding offshore drilling. We've been talking a lot about that, especially since gas prices went through the roof. But a lot of the environmentalists, the people we were talking about making a compromise, would tell you that the reason we're having such a difficult time with the loss of our wetlands and the erosion of our coastline is because of what happened to accommodate the oil companies to get to the offshore drilling. What would you say to that, sir? I apologize, Norman. I was distracted with something coming in. Can you recap? I'll re-ask the question. A lot has been said about offshore drilling, especially after the gas prices went through the roof, and we were talking about compromising with the environmentalists to reach some kind of solution so that we can move ahead with coastal restoration. A lot of the environmentalists would tell you that the reason that we're having this problem with the erosion of our coastline is because of what was done to accommodate offshore oil drilling for the oil companies. What would you say to that? I would say they're right in terms of activity that happened 20 and 30 years ago, and that activity is no longer allowed because we understand the dynamics of saltwater intrusion much better today. So I don't think there's any threat of repeating those mistakes if we expand activity offshore. I really don't. How much money are we talking about expending? How much is it going to cost for us to do what we need to do to protect these coastlines? Billions of dollars, probably tens of billions of dollars. Tens of billions. And can we afford that, Senator? We need to afford it because we serve vital needs of the nation. Now, the good news is that those needs, particularly on the energy side, are more evident than ever before. And then on the state side, in terms of state resources, we have a lot more avenues for matching resources than ever before, including the revenue sharing that we're finally able to pass through the Congress a couple of years ago. So that's at least really encouraging news. All right. In the short term, what about building makeshift barriers? What's the feasibility of that, say, to keep the storm surge out of these large bodies of water like Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, and the Barataria Basin? Well, those are big inlets that you're talking about. I don't think it'd be particularly practical to build something real quick or makeshift for those big waterways. But certainly we need to fortify our system when emergencies like this come up on a temporary basis. But we mostly need to do is just finish the work on the books and get it done a lot sooner rather than later.
Senator Vitter?
Hi, this is Chris Fairbairn. If we could impose on you for just a moment to stay on the line with us, we need to go out to our reporter, Travers Mackel, who was at the Industrial Canal. Travers, you have some new information. Tell us what you're seeing now.
Well, Chris, we have some amazing new video into the news, and we're going to roll it right now. One of our photographers, Tom Fitzgerald. This wall here at the Industrial Canal. This video is unbelievable that he shot. You can see how it's overtopping over the levee wall right now, and you can see just the pounding that this wall is taking right now by this water in the Industrial Canal. The rain has all but stopped, but the wind is picking up to what is a very, very high level. It's whipping us around up here on the Judge Sieber Bridge. But this is video just into the newsroom that you're seeing raw, that one of our photographers, Tom Fitzgerald, went down to the Industrial Canal wall, actually walked around and shot this video, and it's just unbelievable to see the water coming over. There is not much flooding, we should report, in this part of the Upper Ninth Ward in Gentilly. The only thing that's really getting flooded is the train yard, and I gotta tell you, it's not even higher than ankle deep right now. So you're looking at the pictures, you're seeing the water come over, but the effects are not that great as of yet. There's not that much flooding happening now. Chris, Norman?
Well, Travers, what you're telling us is exactly what we're getting from the National Weather Service. Officially, we are told from the National Weather Service, as you see the water overtopping the canal there, flooding is extending inland to CSX Railroad, also to Bayside Park and Claremont Harbor area. We are told that at this time, no homes have been inundated at this time, so we are keeping our fingers crossed that this somehow comes to a quick end with this overtopping. We are also told that President Bush is going to be making an address here just within the next few minutes. At 11:10, he is scheduled to talk, and when he does, we will be taking that live and bringing that to you too.
And we are on the phone with Senator David Vitter. And Senator, if you could, did you hear the reporters say that no homes are being threatened at this point?
Yes. I can't see the video from where I am yet, but obviously his description is pretty encouraging, so we'll all just hope it holds out.
Yeah, the flood walls were designed to protect the homes and not necessarily the industries along that particular stretch. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, and again, let me state, nobody wants to see any overtopping, but hopefully it will stay just that. Some overtopping, not either huge overtopping or certainly not a breach. That's what, but we'll have to monitor it. That's what we're all hoping for.
Yeah, and what are you being told in terms of the strength of the storm surge and how long it's expected to last?
According to my conference call with the Corps, they believe the storm surge for greater New Orleans has reached its peak, so they believe levels now will not continue to rise, but will stay put for a while and then very slowly recede. So I obviously hope that's right, so that storm surge is at its peak and does not continue to rise in, of course it depends on where you are, but I'm talking about greater New Orleans, including the West Bank, also hopefully including Lafourche and Terrebonne.
Hopefully, and so that should be then taken as a sign of encouragement, because if it's reached its peak and this is what we're seeing now, then I guess we can hope that this is as bad as it's going to get, ideally.
Yeah, and again, you know, we need to hope and then verify and hope and then monitor, and so we're going to be looking at all that really, really carefully.
Senator, how is all of this affecting you as a Louisianian? You just went through this like all of us 3 years ago. How is this affecting you?
Well, I think probably like it affects a whole lot of people. Nobody wants to ever go through this drill again. Nobody wants to have to evacuate, which I did with my family a couple days ago. You know, it's no fun for any of us who live in the area and who love this area, but for the same reason, we're committed to it, so we'll do it, and we'll come back, and we'll deal with whatever we need to deal with.
President Bush is about to speak and scheduled to speak in less than a minute, so when that happens, we'll be interrupting again, so please just bear with us.
Complete completely agree that the president way outranks me, so I won't be offended.
Just barely, Senator. Just barely. Remember, you are from the area, so you're local, so you rank pretty highly up there. What would you tell residents, Senator? Because we've talked to many of them who were so scared when they left, saying that they couldn't go through this again, and they don't know if they'll be able to come back and live here. What would you say to them?
I don't think there's any reason for folks to take that attitude and leave the area. And in particular, compared to the projections of 36, 48 hours ago, in a lot of ways we seem to have lucked out. Now, look, we don't want to draw any conclusions when there is a lot more of this to live through. But certainly in terms of the size of the storm, could have been a lot worse in that sense. And it could have slowed, not be moving as quickly. So hopefully all that will yield only modest damage in the end compared to what it could have been.
Ahead of this storm, there was a lot of news briefings delivered by federal officials, and someone from the health department talked about the need for mental health assistance, that because this storm came so quickly after Hurricane Katrina that they saw the need to flood the area, no pun intended, with an extra number of mental health professionals. Do you see the need for that, and is that something that Congress needs to fund?
Well, I'm sure there is that need, and we've been increasing resources in that category for a while, and we need to continue to work on that. But, quite frankly, Norman, the other thing we need to do in that regard is just be good neighbors to our neighbors and be good friends to our friends and supportive family members and help meet their needs and reach out to them, because that can go an awfully long way too.
And on that note, they were talking about the effect of the hurricane, particularly as it relates to children. How are your children holding up?
Oh, they're great. They're in Memphis with their cousins, so they're having a lot of fun, and they're very distracted. I think in general, kids are super resilient, much more so than us old folks stuck in our ways. So they're really resilient.
Amen to that. Only to be a child again, and not to have these kind of worries. But again, we do appreciate your taking the time out to talk to us. It's been very comforting to hear your voice, and I know that I speak for all of the citizens out there who are evacuated and listening on at this broadcast on DirecTV 361. So, Senator, thank you very much, and we wish you the very best.
Great to visit with you all. Stay safe.
All right, nice visiting with you.
We have John Kerner back on the line with us now, an expert in this field. John, are you there with us?
I'm here.
We're looking at this video and these live images as well. That water is just pounding and pounding. It looks as if it's just trying to beat down that flood wall. In your opinion, how much more can these walls handle?
Well, I think they can handle a lot. That's a T-wall. And those aren't ocean waves. Those are what you've got is rising water with about a 2-foot chop on top. It's not a far enough fetch, is the maritime term, for the waves to build any height. So what you've got is some overtopping from the waves, which the pumps can easily handle. The next stage is the water itself goes over, and you've got to can't keep up, and you do get some flooding.
John,
what they should do right now, you've got to have the wind come from the south. As the storm passes by, right now it's blowing from the east-southeast, it would appear. And that keeps filling up that funnel and forcing water into the industrial canal all the way from Shell Beach and the Chef, et cetera, in that giant funnel. One of the ways to relieve that pressure, if the river is at a low stage, and I believe it is to open the locks and let some water flow from the industrial canal into the river. But your agencies don't always talk together.
Well, I was speaking with meteorologist Ron Smiley a moment ago, and he says that the winds are shifting now coming out of the south, Ron?
We can see where they are going to start. We are starting to see a little bit more of that southerly flow that's going to really alleviate a lot of that pressure, and we are going to see that. I'm saying within the next 3 hours, so we'll see if that's going to really hold up, but it does look like that's on its way.
Okay, so
Well, in 3 hours, unfortunately, that funnel works just like a hypodermic needle. And as long as there's a wind coming, say, from the southeast, if it goes a little lower than south from the southeast, it'll stop pressuring the funnel. But right now, if we have to put up with 3 hours, it'll push water into the industrial canal. And again, if they could open the river lock, it would alleviate some of that pressure and maybe lower that industrial canal a teeny bit. I believe the river's at a stage that's below that right now.
Okay, so now would not be the time for that decision to be made. So when
a very easy way to alleviate a foot or two of water out of the industrial canal. Right now, it can only flow out through the Seabrook into Lake Pontchartrain.
Hi, John. Let me bring Dan Milham, our chief meteorologist, into this conversation and talk about the wind direction and the impact that it's having now on the apparent overtopping of this flood wall. Dan, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm listening.
Dan's not there yet. Let us know when he does get on the line. But back to your question. Dan, can
you hear us now, Dan?
Can you hear me now?
We can't hear
Dan. Can you hear me now?
We can't hear Dan. Can he hear us, Greg?
We hear Travers out at the scene.
All right. Mr. Kerner, when you talk about those locks and you say the agencies don't talk to each other, who are those agencies?
Well, you've got, I don't know who controls the locks. I guess it's the navigation or the dock board. I must profess ignorance. But I do know that if it's not in their charter to handle flood control, they have some difficulty getting permission. But the proper thing to do, because I believe the river is well below the water in the industrial canal, is to open those locks and let it flow into the river and take some of the pressure off of the industrial canal walls.
In the engineering of these quay walls, like the one we're looking at now, are they engineered or constructed differently, and how so?
Differently than the eye walls, obviously, yes. They're built like an upside-down T, and they have batter pilings beneath them that go quite deep. So you shouldn't see any of those fail.
Well,
they're quite strong, but I mean, overtopping is something to deal with also.
This wall was not damaged during Hurricane Katrina. So this wall was not one of the walls that they had to work on. Do you know whether they in fact did any reinforcing of this particular wall, John?
No, I don't. They did do a lot of work on what's called the dry side of the western wall by Gentili and whatnot. That area that's been some focus lately, where they have the baskets out there, the 3,000-pound baskets, helping reinforce that. They did a lot of work on the backside to prevent scouring if, in fact, you do get an overtopping, because those walls have receded over time. The land around them has receded. They've got what's called more stick-up, so they have less strength. And, of course, water is going to seek the weakest point. It's the last time to be the wall next to the lower ninth ward. But if there's going to be a failure, it's going to be at the weakest point.
Mr. Kerner, do you have access to a television, or have you been able to see some of that video as the water pouring over the wall? As an expert in this, at what point do you become concerned that something could break or weaken?
Well, I think the concern I have is that the storm doesn't go by fast enough, and we need the wind to come more from the south so it stops forcing water into the industrial canal through the funnel, which is at the confluence of the Mystigo and the Intercoastal Waterway, basically out by Paris Road. And at that point, when that pressure, you've got about a 10-mile sheet of water from the Chef to Shell Beach that pushes in. It's now 9 feet deep, so it's pushing towards the west. And when it gets to that confluence, it's got to stack up. And when it does, it pushes right on into the industrial canal system and pressures all those walls, including there's one wall that's been questioned along New Orleans east side on the northern side of the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway, there by where all the trash dumps are, where that pile of trash is.
Mr. Kerner, I have two questions for you, but I want to bring Dan Milham back in first. Dan, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, hi, Dan. Mr. John Kerner, our levee expert, is on the line with us, and he's concerned about the overtopping of the flood walls in the industrial canal. He's concerned about the direction of the wind. We need a southeasterly flow to take some of the pressure off of that flood wall. What's the likelihood of that taking place anytime soon?
Well, you have the southeasterly flow now, and that's not taking any pressure off the flood wall. But when it moves around more to the south, I think John will agree, that will take some pressure off of Lake Pontchartrain and off of the industrial canal. So I'm going to show you a full picture and try to narrate for you what's happening, and a timeline can be deduced. If you look here, you'll see the center of Gustav coming ashore, which took place right around Cocodrie, just as we expected in southeast Terrebonne Parish. But look at the rain bands up here, and you'll see that their direction, now here's north, here's south. Don't be insulted if you're saying, Dan, we can figure that out, because I want to be as thorough as possible. These bands out here farther from the center are moving in a general southeasterly direction, meaning from the southeast. They're still shoving water up here right past Lake Bourne and into Lake Pontchartrain. Now, in a moment, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the industrial canal and give you a perspective. There, we're going to center it up. The industrial canal is right in this area here. And so you see, you're starting to get a wind shift around to more southerly, but here next to the center of the storm, that's where the winds you can see are more from the south. We need this center to keep moving over in this northwestward direction. According to the Hurricane Center, it still is. They see it moving at a rate of about 15 miles an hour. So we've got to try to sort of extrapolate just how long will it take it to get far enough away that these outer areas will start blowing in from the south. Here's the industrial canal, right in this area where I'm pointing here. When the rain bands break up, you can see it right in here. We'll go in even a little bit closer on our map. You can see for yourself the industrial canal right between the rain bands. There it is. But the rain bands keep moving over it, so that's why it's giving us a somewhat obstructed view at the moment. So we zoom back out, because we want to take a look at the center of Gustav. And there he is again. He's coming inland here, and there he is right now. And what we need is for him to keep moving in this direction, and it's going to take another, I would say, it's going to take another good hour or so before he moves far enough to the north. More out are the ones that have moved over to southeast Louisiana. These guys here are more southerly. These guys up here currently affecting the entrance to the lake are more southeasterly. And the same thing for everything coming in through the St. Bernard to Plaquemines opening right here. And that, of course, is an area of a very high surge concern right there. So I think it's going to be another, let me be conservative and say couple of hours before this center gets far enough west, wherever it is over here in central or west central Louisiana, for this wind. You see, what we basically need is for it to get over here so that we are sort of due east of the center. When you're due east of the center, like right in here, you're going to get a southerly wind. So it's going to take a couple more hours. But over time, during that couple of hours, since it's ashore now, slowly but surely the wind should be decreasing. And then trailing the wind decrease, you're going to get more of a decrease in the water pressure coming in on that wind. Remember, water doesn't stop moving just because what's moving it stops moving. As we've talked about the way surge builds up, the wind dies down gradually, and then long after that, trailing it, depending on how much water you're talking about, the water effect will die down gradually. So I think, again, speaking conservatively, it's going to be another, let's say, 2 hours. As the wind is dying down and as it's shifting, it'll be about that much time before we really appreciate any difference in the effect on the lake and on the canal. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Dan, you mentioned the rain bands. How much rain do you see still left, and can that contribute to the problem?
That problem that we're talking about here, no. I don't see rain increasing the worries about the industrial canal or any of the other areas, because that is primarily surge, and so much water is involved here. Take a look at that video, and that's a lot of water, and a few more inches of rain are not going to make a significant difference. The rain concern will be what it always is. How low is your ground? How good is your drainage? Almost a whole separate concern.
All right, it's kind of windy out there, and that's creating some satellite fade from our chief meteorologist at our satellite weather center. Mr. John Kerner, our levee expert's on the phone with us, and we have Mr. Kerner on the phone with us because he was chairman of the New Orleans Bring New Orleans Back Flood Protection Committee. Mr. Kerner, are you still there?
Still here.
Were you able to hear Dan Milham's assessment of the current situation and what's expected to happen for the next 2 hours?
Absolutely, and I agree with him. And for those 2 hours, we have to be anxious because that would indicate, and you may ask him if he's still on the air, that would indicate the water in the industrial canal will continue to rise because of that pressure from the wind from the southeast until it moves further around to the south from, say, 160 degrees or so, somewhere over that neighborhood. It continues to put pressure underneath the Parish Road Bridge to bring more water into the industrial canal.
Oh, so the water will continue to rise, and
look, I'm not an engineer, but as long as it's blowing hard from that, anything above southeast, anywhere from northeast to southeast, is putting pressure on the funnel, and it's got to come further from the south, and that pressure will then be relieved. Then the Mississippi Gulf Coast gets the pressure.
Dan, are you back with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Did you hear Mr. Kerner and who was agreeing with you that we have to be anxious these next couple of hours?
Yeah, it is something to be continually watched because the hurricane centers said that they think the surge has reached about where it's going to get. But about where it's going to get, looking at that video from the industrial canal, does that mean maybe just 1 or 2 more feet? And does 1 or 2 more feet mean now we have water actually flowing over the wall rather than waves splashing against it? So yeah, I say we have to continue to be very vigilant, but right now the wind speed should be decreasing. The pressure on that water to move into the lake is slowly decreasing. And remember, the water moving into the lake now isn't just reacting to the wind that's on it now. It's been building up all the way across the Gulf of Mexico, and that part's over. The pushing of the water from the Gulf is over, so that pressure is also slowly but surely coming down. So as I say, I think the next 2 hours are going to be critical, and what you're seeing here, as John has told you, is basically very dramatic looking, but it's waves that are maybe a couple of feet high and, you know, hurricane force gusts of wind that are spraying those waves up, and as they splash against the wall, they make a pretty dramatic a couple of feet of actual rise of water. You could start to see that water literally spilling over the wall, and that's going to be something that's going to be pretty hard to watch. So let's see. It may just sort of equalize from now through the next 2 hours with the decent increase in the winds. There may the hurricane, like it may have sort of reached peak and not get any worse. Let's see if they're right.
All right, Mr. Kerner, you've heard Dan Milham. Would 1 or 2 additional feet cause continuous spillage over that flood wall?
Yes, it would. And I think the pumps could handle maybe as much as 6 inches over. You know, there's a point at which the pumps can't handle it anymore, and it begins to build up in the city. And it's a question of duration, just like rain. How long will it last? I think the pressure will be off in a few hours, and that water will retreat back out the way it came in. But again, if they open the locks into the river, I suspect that they could lower that water by as much as 2 feet rather fast.
You're fairly confident of that?
If the river's below that level, and I believe it is in August or September, you certainly can open that lock and let the water flow into the river at no harm to anybody.
Well, we hope that somebody's listening who has some authority who can at least investigate your suggestion to see if it's feasible or not. It sounds feasible. And if it is, in fact, feasible, then certainly it's worth checking out to make sure it works.
On the left side of your screen right now is Austin, Texas, where President Bush is expected to arrive sometime within the next few minutes or so, and he'll be making a live address, and we'll bring that to you. And on the right side of your screen, you will continue to see live pictures of what's going on at the industrial canal, and you can see the water building up there as the waves are spilling over the key wall, the key flood wall there, and there is some flooding at that rail yard. But we are told at this time no homes have been flooded.
Yeah, and we're told that the flooding is very minimal at this point. And on the phone with us is levee expert John Kerner. John, I alluded to the fact that I had two questions for you before we talked to Dan. My first question is, you said that that wall had been worked on the dry side, on the wet side, facing Gentilly. And you said that it is protected from scouring. Would you explain scouring for our viewers, please?
Well, if you get overtopping, what happened to some of the walls, they get eaten out from the backside. The water comes over, and just a waterfall is a perfect description. It falls 6 or 8 feet with some force and then scours out behind the wall. It particularly weakens an eye wall. And what you do, if you put roughly 6 feet of cement or a heavy rock back there to break the pressure of that water falling over the top, you don't get the scouring effect in the softer mud. So it's a very much improved situation, but it was done because they didn't have time to do anything better. I mean, obviously the best thing to do, either raise them or strengthen them in some other fashion. But in an overtop situation, I think that'll be a much improved strengthening of the much maligned eye wall.
So you have confidence in this wall at this point?
Well, the wall, you see it on TV as a T-wall.
Yes.
And the wall we're talking about, the eye wall, is behind Gentilly on the west side of the industrial canal. And that's where they've also put the baskets there, the 3,000-pound baskets.
I got you.
To strengthen it.
Is there a height requirement or a height limit on how high these walls can be built? If the wall were higher, it would be less of a threat and allow more water before it does something like this?
Well, it depends on what type of wall. It's something in an eye wall, which we'll probably never see again because it's politically impossible to make an eye wall in this neighborhood. They're not happy with it. But the further it sticks up, the less strong it is, depending on how it sticks down. And there are limits as to most eye walls are only good for 6 or 8 feet at the most, and after that, solution if you have to go up more than 6 feet.
Now, Mr. Kerner, you were on the Bring New Orleans Back Flood Protection Committee, and you came up with some recommendations specifically for the industrial canal to prevent situations like this. Would you explain what those were?
Sure. We had a hurry-up fix to put a barrier across the bottom of the funnel right there near the Parish Road Bridge, and to do it quickly with rocks and a floating barge gate.
Mr. Kerner, I'm sorry to interrupt. The president is approaching the podium. Let's listen in.
He's more important than I am. Thank you. I'll hold.
Well, we thank you.
He's shaking hands and making his way to the podium. So we'll just sit tight for just a moment. If you want to stay on the line and listen, that'd be great.
This is the president's first statement concerning Gustav. After Gustav hit landfall, he made the statement yesterday from Washington that he would be leaving for Texas. In fact, that he would visit San Antonio to look at and inspect some of the staging areas. He said that he was quite concerned about the situation in New Orleans. He urged people to get out ahead of the storm, which they in fact did. And he said he would not come to New Orleans today because he did not want the focus of the effort here to be taken off of preparation. He did not want to overshadow the efforts of the federal, state, and local officials already on the ground, but that he wanted the people of this area to know, and he wanted the whole country to understand that he was concerned about what was going on here, and that the whole federal government was engaged in the process of monitoring and ensuring that the people in this area were protected. He also said that he would not be attending the National Republican Convention, that he and the Vice President would be staying close by so that they could monitor this situation with hurricane. The biggest problem that is caused so far that we can see is the overtopping of a section of the T-wall on the industrial canal.
Let me just also mention what you might see, those very brief moments of when your screen goes to black while we're watching live pictures of the industrial canal. That is because it's still very windy out there. as Gustav continues to blow through. And when the wind blows really hard like that, it shakes the satellite truck, and we lose the signal very briefly for just a moment or two, except for that's someone wiping off the lens. But so just bear with us, if you will, about when that happens. And why it went to black on the left, I think they're probably just trying to make sure the shot in from Austin, Texas is a clear and clean feed. So while we wait for the president to address the podium, which right now he's just, I think, doing some handshaking and some protocol on meet and greet.
Yeah, the president is probably thanking the people who are involved at the federal level in preparing for the recovery effort here after Hurricane Gustav has passed through. No doubt he's extending his gratitude for their service and giving them each an individual opportunity to shake hands with them. As you know, it's quite exciting. When you meet the commander-in-chief, no matter who you are, you want to shake hands with him, you want to get close to him, and you want to have the opportunity to talk to him, or at least take a picture with him. The photographer there probably doesn't know that he's on live TV. So.
He might have put his camera down to shake for the coordinated effort between the federal government, the state. He's had several conversations with Bobby Jindal and also with Mayor Ray Nagin. Yesterday, Mayor Nagin was telling us that he spoke with the president a couple of times and that the conversations were very positive and very encouraging and supportive.
If you don't mind, I think it's going to be a while before the president talks. Let's go back to John Kerner. And John, finish telling us, if you will, with the understanding that we might have to break in for the president's speech about your plans for plugging up the industrial canal to keep out storm surges.
Well, we had encouraged a very rapid closure there because it continued the Achilles heel. The industrial canal is a common sea level waterway that abuts three separate bowls: the Metro New Orleans Bowl, the New Orleans East Bowl, and the St. Bernard Lower Ninth Bowl. And so it's an important body of water, and it's subject to this summer of '09 to build the structure across. It runs basically from Michoud Slip to Bayou Bienvenue locks, and that will give us almost immediately what we call 50-year protection, not 100-year, and then 2 years later will be the 100-year protection. So this probably would not have happened had this hurricane occurred 1 year later. There'd have been something in the way of it.
Now, would you block off both ends of the industrial canal, John?
Oh, yes. Seabrook should be blocked, too, in the case, as Katrina did, was fill Lake Pontchartrain with 6.5 feet of extra water and then stack it up on one side of the lake, which made it roughly 11 feet. Yeah, that needs to be closed up also.
So we are fortunate in the sense that that this storm has not filled up Lake Pontchartrain. Is that the point you're making?
Well, that is correct, yes. Mm-hmm. Fortunate for both sides of the lake, and that just happened to be the path it took. Had it been a little further to the east, it probably would have filled Lake Pontchartrain again, or moved slower. Either factor will put more water into Lake Pontchartrain.
What's the likely impact for New Orleans East or East New Orleans and St. Bernard?
Well, they're feeling some of the pressure. It's the most visible, of course, is right there where all the cameras are right now at the T-wall on the west side of the Industrial Canal. But it's obviously pressuring some of the walls, what would you call it, west of Parish Road. Those really haven't seen a lot of work. The two levees on either side of the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway.
What would be your overall impression of how well things have held up so far?
Oh, it's terrific. I mean, if the Corps of Engineers had more time, it could have built more and more. And, of course, we're at 2011 for 100-year protection, which I don't think our citizenry should ever be satisfied with 100-year protection. We need more than that.
What would your ideal recommendation be for protection, Mr. Kerner?
All the models show that if we just raise some of our perimeters by only 3 feet from the 100-year level, that would give us virtually 1,000-year protection. Only 3 more feet. Now, 3 feet is, you add it, as an engineer will tell you, that's in cubes, so it's not just a tiny little bit more money. It's a reasonable amount of more money. And then we've got to close the perimeter around the city, at least on the East Bank over here, and that would be the big holes are the ones we're talking about right now, the one that allows the water to come in the industrial canal from either Seabrook or from the funnel.
Just a quick update here. We want to tell everyone, we don't know why, but apparently President Bush has decided not to speak. As we saw a moment ago, he was entering the room shaking hands in Austin, Texas. So he has decided not to make the address, and we don't know why, but we're waiting on more information about that. And while we do wait to find out what's going on with that in Austin, let's go to Ron, because there's been still some serious weather to look out for.
Yeah, there certainly is. We're looking at now another tornado warning being issued. This is going to be up into northeastern Washington Parish. This is a warning that has been issued. This is a Doppler indicated storm. Just wanted to keep you up to date. These are very small tornadoes. They usually come and go. You just got to be, kind of prepared for them. This one's going to be up into Washington Parish. We'll keep you up to date if we see any more of these popping up as well. So a large watch area there, and everywhere is going to be. As the storm comes ashore, Mississippi, coastal Mississippi will also be on the lookout for those isolated tornadoes.
On that live radar, it looks like there's, as you can see those bands reaching Gulfport, a lot of red, intense areas there.
Yeah, the good thing that we are seeing is going to be right where you see New Orleans. We're seeing more of those rains moving to the north and not to the west. That means that those winds are starting to change. They're starting to be out of the south. We wanted to go kind of conservative earlier, but right now it is looking like we're seeing those southerly winds now. That's going to help the situation a lot at the industrial canal.
And that's what Mr. Kerner was just saying, that will really help to make a difference.
And none too soon, Mr. Kerner, who's still on the phone with us, because you can see, if you're looking at those pictures, it looks like the pace of the water overtopping the levees is picking up.
I can't see it. There was so much noise by the TV, I had to move into a quiet room.
Well, take our word for it. The pace is picked up, but is that significant? Does that mean anything in particular?
Yes, it means that the pressure is still coming through the funnel underneath the Parish Road Bridge, and it will continue for a while longer. Water having more momentum than air, as Dan Milham was talking about, it tends, even after the force is not pushing it, it still has that momentum. And so it follows on. As air being lighter, it stops, but the water keeps coming. It has a lag.
Even with the shift or change in the direction of the wind, Ron Smiley, our meteorologist, said is now shifted to the south.
That's a great benefit. That will really help a whole lot. That may let that water just stop right at the level it's at. Let's pray it would stop right now, and stop coming up. But the water has to be from the south out in the funnel. The fact that it's changed in the city, it's got to also change out by the funnel too.
All right, Mr. John Kerner, our levee expert. And by the way, before you get away, how are you doing, and where did you evacuate to?
Well, the first time in my life, my wife made me evacuate, and we're in Destin. And there's 10-foot seas here. The water, if you're interested, 10 foot high, and it's pouring the waves, and it's come right up to the dunes.
Oh my goodness!
I can actually see some of that on the live First Alert radar. Some of that red and the green areas, and some of the clouds moving over there in the Destin area too. So okay, let's go to.
All right. Well, thanks for being with us, and good luck to you.
All right, you too.
Let's go out to Travers Mackel at the Industrial Canal with some new information. Travers.
What we're seeing right now is you're looking at this part of the Judge Sieber Bridge, but a little bit further down towards the Florida Avenue Bridge, the water is actually kind of starting to roll over the side. It was hitting before and splashing over towards the middle. Closer to the Florida Avenue Bridge, it's starting to just roll over the top of this seawall, or this levee wall right here. That's exactly what's happening right now. That is the very latest. We had heard that the levee may have breached. That is not true. I can tell you from the part that we can see, there are no breaches right now. It's just splashing and hitting it and coming overtopping, and then now it's starting to roll over in the middle. But from what we can see, and we've got a pretty good vantage point up here, there are no breaches right now.
Travers, is it rolling over because the strength or force of the wind has picked up, or what's causing that increase in the rollover?
I would have to assume the winds are getting stronger, and that's what's causing the rollover, as well as possibly the water getting up there high.
Now, we saw some vessels in that. Be careful, because the wind is picking up out there, and it's tossing you around a bit. But if you can, stay safe. We saw some vessels in the industrial canal. Are they tied down? Because we had heard some reports earlier that there was that 2 barges broke loose and a ship broke loose in the canal. Is there any truth to that?
Not that we can see, Norman, and we can see all the way from where the industrial canal, from the intercoastal waterway all the way to the Florida Avenue Bridge. There are no barges. We have not seen any barges break free. It's almost rolling over the top of the levee wall.
Travers, I know it's windy. Can you hear me okay?
I'm fine, Chris and Norman, I'm fine.
Well, when Mr. Kerner was telling us that when this wind begins to make that shift southward, we'll actually see the water just sort of level off. You haven't seen any of that yet, have you?
We have not, and I'm gonna bring in my brother Fletcher. He's been driving around all day. We're going to stay on the shot, but he's here with me right now. You've been driving around. What does it look like down by the Seabrook Bridge and everywhere else?
It actually looks like there's less stress on the industrial canal where it funnels into Lake Pontchartrain. We went from the Seabrook Bridge all the way at Lake Pontchartrain, all the way along the levee wall down here, past the Danziger Bridge, all the way down to the Claiborne Bridge, and it actually looks like there is less stress. There is still several feet before the water reaches the top of the flood wall. When you get closer to Lake Pontchartrain, it seems like the stress on the industrial canal wall really builds up between the Danziger Bridge and here at the Claiborne Bridge. That seems to be false.
Norman, Chris?
Is that the strongest, are those the strongest gusts of wind that you've experienced thus far, Travers?
Norman, I think you're asking me a question. I think I just lost you. I'm going to try to redouble. We're going to keep talking. We're going to know out here.
Okay, well, it's very windy, like we said. It's difficult to make things out occasionally. This looks like a couple of TV crews who are awfully close to what's going on. That looks very dangerous.
Well, actually, our photographer, Tom Fitzgerald, went out there first.
Well, that was earlier. That was before things got really bad.
I think they're trying not to be shown up by our photographer, Tom Fitzgerald. They can be just as brave. But anyway, as you can see, the conditions are deteriorating out there. It's very difficult to stand up. As you saw, Travers having a very difficult time because the wind is pushing him around now. And it's also creating audio problems. It's difficult for him to hear. It's also creating transmission problems, as Chris mentioned a while back, that occasionally you will see the television screen go to black. That's because the wind, the force of the wind, is pushing around the transmission signal. On the phone with us right now is civil engineer Sam Scandialato from, easy for me to say, from New Orleans. And Sam, where did you evacuate to, or are you still in the city?
I'm still in the city, Norman. I live in the French Quarter, and I'm still here. My family and all that, they've all gone. But I stayed here for Katrina, and I saw no reason to evacuate this time also.
What do you make of the situation on the industrial canal as it relates to water overtopping the flood wall there?
Well, I certainly hope it doesn't happen because, as you know, I've worked with people on both sides of that canal for the last 3 years to try to get them back. And what's happening is that the levees that they have there, they clearly aren't high enough. And in order to do a storm surge through a Category 4, you got to have at least an 18-foot high levee. And what I've been proposing for the last 3 years, and it's fallen on deaf ears, is that we need a double wall impact levee. The impact levee can serve two purposes. You can build it up as high as you want at very little extra cost, and of course it prevents the surge forces from breaching the levees. You see, when you design for hurricanes, you not only have to worry about the height of the water, but you have to worry about the force from the surge. And the surge force is about 15 to 20 times greater than the wind force that's producing that surge. So that's why it's important to have an impact levee. Not only that, it also protects you from any boats or barges or anything that may become loose. It will not fracture the levee. But more importantly, you can get up as high as you have to get up. And this is what we need to do in order to protect this city. If we did that, then we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now.
Sam, if that's what we need, if that's what this city, this area needs, those double wall impact levees, is it just not practical that the government would invest, or I mean, is it just some sort of exorbitant amount of money that it would cost to do that? Would these types of key walls have to be torn down, the T-wall types?
Well, you could always put them next to them or on top of them. Excuse me, but the cost of these levees can be easily built within the monies that was originally allocated to the Corps of Engineers for the protection of the city of New Orleans. As a matter of fact, Texas A&M University is now doing a complete study of this levee and will issue a report on it probably within the next 30 days.
Well, how about what we've been seeing right here? We're waiting on that. Well, we're told the wind, and once it shifts to the south, it's going to relieve the pressure and the water's going to be standing still. But I was asking Mr. Kerner how much these T-walls can take as far as the pounding from the waves and the overtopping. Are you concerned that that everything has its breaking point?
Certainly everything has its breaking point. However, let me say this. A T-wall levee, it's much, much stronger than an I-wall levee. The I-wall levees virtually have no strength at all against the surge. And if the west side or the Gentilly Wood side has I-wall levees, they have to be extremely careful about that. You can hang all the baskets you want on them. If the levees themselves are bad designs. However, the T-wall levees, they're much stronger. They use better powers. The only problem with those are you can't get them up high enough. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're seeing now the results of that.
Right. Just, I think 6 or 8 feet is as high as you can go.
Oh, no, you can go higher than that. Well, I would hope they go higher than that. But they should be up around 18 feet, 18 to 20 feet. You got to remember, this storm missed us. And, we have got to do something with this. But I'm having a hard time getting the Corps of Engineers to pay attention.
Stand by. We're going to go back to President Bush, who's being briefed in Austin, Texas, at the staging area for the federal government.
Knock on wood, this may not be over with yet because of the potential of severe flooding up in northeast Texas. But again, we'll be ready for it, sir.
Governor, thank you. Senator, thank you for coming. Members of Congress. The coordination on this storm is a lot better than during Katrina. A lot of it had to do with the governors. Yesterday I was on the video conference with governors of Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. There was clearly a spirit of sharing assets, of listening to somebody's problems and saying, how can we best address them? The federal government is very much involved in helping the states. Our job is to assist. That's why Secretary Paulson is with me today. He heads FEMA. I do want to thank the state of Texas and other states for welcoming citizens from Louisiana. That comes when you're not at home. And I want to thank those citizens who listened carefully to the local authorities and evacuated. And I want to thank my fellow citizens in Texas and in other states for welcoming these folks in open arms. The state of Texas is a generous state. And Governor, I want to thank you and your team for being so kind to the people. And it's very important for those who've been evacuated to listen very carefully to the officials in their respective states before they decide to return. The storm is yet to pass. It's a serious event. And as the governor mentioned, the people of East Texas, got to be prepared for a possible flooding event. All in all, what I look for is to determine whether or not assets are in place to help, whether or not there's coordination, and whether or not there's preparation for recovery. And to that end, I feel good about this event. And I do want to thank Gail McGovern of the American Red Cross for joining us, and thank a lot of the other organizations that are preparing to go help people in need. These organizations, such as the American Red Cross and the Salvation Army, require the support of our citizens. And if you're interested in how you can help once the storm passes, please call up the different websites of these organizations. And donate your time or your money so that the recovery effort is as compassionate and complete as possible. Governor, thanks for having me. I want to thank your team for all the hard work they're doing. I'm looking forward to going in with you in the room next door to say thanks to the people that are working the long hours. And we're going to go down to San Antonio and see a staging area there and thank the people there for working so hard, not only on behalf of the citizens of Texas, but on behalf of the people of the region. Appreciate it. Yeah. Good to be home, Mr. President. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all. President Bush being briefed on the status of the emergency preparations and also the potential recovery efforts at an emergency operations center in Austin, Texas. He was there with the governor of Texas and federal officials who are anticipating that they will experience some flooding in eastern Texas as Hurricane Gustav moves over north central Louisiana, where there's also going to be some flooding. We haven't had any significant flooding here in the metro area yet that we know of, although we do know that there is some flooding along the eye wall, or the flood wall rather, in Gentilly along the Industrial Canal.
And you can see, you know, it looks like it hasn't let up at all. Norman, you made the observation that it looks like it's actually increased the amount of water coming over those walls. Sam, are you still there? No. All right.
We were on the phone with Sam Scandiata, civil engineer from New Orleans, who is riding out the storm at his home in the French Quarter. Sam, are you? All right. Sam has left us, but we do have new information from Ken Jones, our reporter, who is at the Industrial Canal. Ken?
A very scary sight in the Industrial Canal on the Gentilly side of the canal are these two boats which have broken loose. One called the American Explorer, the other loose. You know what could happen out here. If this levee breaks because of these two boats, you can only imagine this will be the same thing that happened during Hurricane Katrina. At the Industrial Canal, Ken Jones, WDSU News Channel 6.
All right, Ken, that's something we'll have to continue to monitor. Let's go to meteorologist Ron Smiley now. We mentioned some flooding going on in this area right here by this T-wall, and also some flooding in Mississippi.
Well, we are starting to see the winds more out of the south. That was the important thing that we wanted to see, even though we're still seeing that overtopping. Now, just because the winds are going to go out of the south and you're looking at live video there of the Industrial Canal, does not mean the level of the water is going to go down. In fact, the level of the water might go up. What we're looking at is going to be those winds blowing across right on the levees, and that's where that concern was really coming right now. Not just the waves blowing over, but the winds actually forcing the water back on that left side and that extra lean being that way. We can actually go over to our Line First Alert radar. Look at Belle Chase, 66 mile per hour wind gusts is what just was recorded there back into Belle Chase over the last couple of minutes, and that was that extra oomph with the winds that was really blowing him around. And you remember Norman said, hey, please be careful when you're out there, and that's certainly what all of our guys are doing. Once again, we'll put this into motion, and you can really start to see winds now. They're not directly out of the south, but they're more going to be kind of this way. You know, they're going to be moving to the north-northwest instead of directly south, but that is going to help those levees. Now the concern, and we'll zoom out, is going to be with the rainfall. We have not seen the rainfall as heavy as what it could have been. Look at our radar, our Live First Alert radar. We're seeing lots of greens, lots of yellows. We're not seeing a lot of the red, deep red colors that would tell us a very intense storm was blowing through. But we are continuing to see lots of those greens and lots of those yellows, and those are going to be continuous. It does look like that 6 to 12 inches is really what most communities can expect. And if you're on the North Shore, I would think it would be very close to about 4 to 6 inches of rainfall. Now, Houma, Terrebonne, those places have received some rainfall. We are also getting reports that the storm surge there is starting to rise at this point. So I don't have